Yeah, we're live. Hi, guys.
To 2025, a chilling question looms. Could this be the year the seven plagues descend upon us? The signs are everywhere, whispers of ancient texts foretelling devastation, astrological patterns signaling upheaval, and a world grappling with
Hi,
ecological,
Diane. Good to
health,
see you.
and societal collapse. The clues are too
Hey,
stark
Nan.
to
Welcome to
ignore.
the channel.
From biblical visions of
Right,
wrath
you
to
go, bye.
Nostradamus' cryptic predictions, and even indigenous warnings of purification, the narrative converges. 2025 may mark a pivotal moment in human history. Will we face pandemics, environmental cataclysms, or even spiritual reckonings? Or can we harness this moment to rewrite our destiny? This is not just a story of doom, but a call to awaken. Through prophecy, astrology, and actionable wisdom, we'll uncover the secrets of 2025, revealing not just its trials, but the paths to survival and renewal. The time to prepare is now before the first plague falls. As humanity steps into 2025, whispers of ancient prophecies and celestial warnings reverberate across spiritual, historical, and astrological domains. Could this be the year when the so-called seven plagues strike, testing humanity's resilience? Drawing from the Bible, Nostradamus, indigenous lore, and astrological patterns, this video delves into ancient and modern insights, exploring potential challenges and remedies to guide humanity through turbulent times. Throughout human history, stories of divine retribution have been etched into the collective psyche, often framed as warnings or moral lessons. These prophecies, particularly those involving catastrophic events, seem to transcend cultural boundaries and point to a universal truth. When humanity strays too far from the sacred balance of creation, a reckoning follows. At the heart of these narratives lies the theme of plagues, natural or supernatural phenomena that strip humanity of its illusions of control. One of the most compelling references to plagues arises from the Bible, where they are used as instruments of divine intervention. The 10 plagues of Egypt in the book of Exodus were not merely acts of punishment, but a profound display of power aimed at dismantling Pharaoh's hubris and his empire's systemic oppression. Each plague served as both a physical disruption and a spiritual metaphor, turning the life-giving Nile into blood symbolized the corruption of prosperity. The swarms of locusts signaled nature rising against humanity. The pestilence that struck livestock represented economic devastation. These plagues were sequential escalations, growing in severity, each calling Pharaoh to humble himself and recognize the sovereignty of the divine. Yet, his repeated refusals hardened his heart further, culminating in the ultimate plague, the death of the firstborn. It was a stark reminder of the cost of defiance against divine authority, a warning that echoes through time. The book of Revelation draws a chilling parallel to these ancient events. In the apocalyptic visions of John, seven bowls of wrath are poured out upon humanity in the end times, each one unleashing catastrophic consequences. These plagues symbolize the culmination of human rebellion and the resulting collapse of societal and ecological systems. They speak of scorching heat, poisoned waters, and darkness, creating vivid imagery of environmental devastation and spiritual desolation.
Wow.
What makes these ancient prophecies unsettlingly relevant is their resonance with contemporary challenges. Today, humanity faces its own plagues, pandemics, climate change, mass extinctions, and economic inequality. The biblical plagues and their apocalyptic counterparts in Revelation mirror these modern crises, as though the ancient texts anticipated our era of upheaval. The water turning to blood might find a modern parallel in polluted rivers and oceans choked with industrial waste, symbolizing humanity's desecration of nature's lifeblood. Locust swarms, which devastated regions of East Africa in recent years, evoke memories of the Exodus, underscoring the vulnerability.
And Diane, there's the truth of it. What he's doing. There's the truth of it. That's what Trump's all about. Wow, I'm dreading him getting into power.
Of human agriculture to climate extremes. The pestilence that struck Pharaoh's livestock echoes today's zoonotic diseases, which leap from animals to humans, exacerbated by the encroachment of human activity on wildlife habitats. Famine, another theme of the biblical plagues and Revelation's prophecies, remains an ever present specter in regions destabilized by conflict and environmental collapse. The imagery of scorching heat in Revelation feels particularly poignant as global temperatures rise, leading to unprecedented heat waves and droughts. Both the 10 plagues of Exodus and the 7 bowls of Revelation serve a dual purpose. They are both a form of divine judgment and a call to repentance. In each case, the plagues act as a mirror, reflecting humanity's hubris and disconnection from the divine order. They challenge societies to confront the consequences of their actions and realign themselves with the moral and spiritual laws that govern the cosmos. In the Exodus narrative, the ultimate goal was liberation not just of the Israelites from slavery, but of humanity from the chains of arrogance and idolatry.
On the surface, it looks good, doesn't it, Diane, until you realise who his appointments are and what they represent. He lost me with that Abramovich, the spirit cooking witch. When I knew her favourite guy was part of Trump's team, that said it all. I was done with Trump.
Similarly, the apocalyptic visions of Revelation are not merely about destruction but renewal. They foretell a period of intense trial that ultimately leads to a new heaven and a new earth, where harmony is restored. In today's world, these ancient prophecies remind us that the path to redemption often begins with recognition. They call for a return to humility, a willingness to acknowledge the limits of human power, and the need for a higher guidance. The plagues, whether ancient or contemporary, are not just acts of wrath, but opportunities for transformation, urging humanity to heed the warnings, turn away from destructive paths, and embrace a deeper spiritual truth. The question remains, will humanity, like Pharaoh, harden its heart, or will it find the humility to listen? As these ancient texts
Going by the history of mankind, it will harden its heart.
suggest, the outcome of the plagues, whether they lead to destruction or renewal, ultimately lies in our response. Hey there, amazing viewers! If you're enjoying this video and want to show your support, don't forget to hit that super thanks button below. It's a great way to help keep content like this coming your way. Your support means the world to me, and it helps us continue making awesome videos for you. Thanks so much for being part of this journey. Let's get back into video. Michel de Nostredame, commonly known as Nostradamus, is a name steeped in mystique. A 16th century apothecary and seer, Nostradamus crafted enigmatic quatrains that some believe foretell humanity's most profound crises. His verses, brimming with ambiguity, often find new relevance in modern events, particularly in times of global uncertainty. As we approach 2025, many wonder, are we living through the realities he foresaw centuries ago? One of Nostradamus' quatrains reads, "The great plague of the maritime city will not cease until blood is avenged." This verse has fueled speculation among scholars and enthusiasts alike. What exactly is the plague of the maritime city? Some interpret it as a literal health pandemic spreading through port cities, exacerbated by globalization and modern maritime trade. Others believe it hints at broader crises, such as rising sea levels inundating coastal regions, resulting in disease outbreaks, resource conflicts, or even mass migrations. For instance, cities like Venice, Miami, and Jakarta are grappling with the immediate consequences of climate change. Flooding, poor sanitation, and overcrowding in these vulnerable areas could create a perfect storm for outbreaks of cholera, malaria, or novel pathogens. The COVID-19 pandemic served as a stark reminder of how quickly disease can spread in our interconnected world. Could 2025 bring another chapter of such crises, amplified by environmental upheavals? The phrase, "blood is avenged," adds a chilling dimension to the prophecy. Could this line foreshadow conflicts sparked by dwindling water resources? Experts have long warned of water wars as rivers dry, aquifers deplete, and disputes intensify over access to clean water. Coastal cities dependent on fragile freshwater supplies might find themselves in the crosshairs of these tensions.
Hmm.
Already, disputes over rivers like the Nile, Ganges, and Colorado are brewing, with potential for escalation in the coming years.
And the
Furthermore,
Euphrates, the reason it's dry is because a country at the beginning of the Euphrates has built a dam. So that's why the Euphrates has gone dry.
rising sea levels could force the relocation of millions of people from low-lying coastal areas, creating massive refugee crises and straining already scarce resources. Nostradamus' warnings, often dismissed as cryptic musings, take on an eerily plausible resonance when viewed through the lens of modern environmental science and geopolitics. Modern interpretations of Nostradamus frequently link his references to plagues with pandemics, the resurgence of diseases like tuberculosis and malaria, compounded by the emergence of antibiotic-resistant pathogens, paints a dire picture for global health. Climate change exacerbates these risks, with warming temperatures expanding the range of disease-carrying vectors like mosquitoes. Additionally, the aftermath of COVID-19 has left healthcare systems globally overstretched and vulnerable. Could a confluence of
So you see it, Diane, they steal my numbers. They do that a lot.
environmental degradation
When I hang up, it comes up on the laptop how many viewed our stream, the chat. And let's say it's 150. When I hang up and then relook at the channel, it's down to 90 views or something. So I'm only a little channel, but they're still ripping me off.
and infectious disease outbreaks manifest as the Great Plague Nostradamus envisioned, coastal and port cities, with their high population densities and dependence on global trade, remain particularly susceptible. The genius or curse of Nostradamus lies in the elasticity of his words. His quatrains seem to mold themselves to the anxieties of any given era, yet some threads are strikingly consistent. His visions often feature themes of human.
No, yesterday's one was about the rapture, remember? And I'd done a lot of pre-trib stuff, but I didn't have any post-trib to do because I didn't have time. So I'm going to do another one tomorrow on the rapture because got a lot of attention to yesterday.
Hubris,
So people actually
natural
want to know
catastrophe,
when the rapture is or if there's a rapture. So I'll do that tomorrow as well.
and violent reckoning.
Oh.
As we navigate the 20 and 20s, these themes echo loudly. Climate change, escalating geopolitical tensions, and public health crises form a trifecta of existential threats. Could 2025 represent a crescendo of these challenges, as suggested by Nostradamus' cryptic warnings? While not
Share the joy at Maya this Christmas with 20% off toys, selected Legos and more, and 50% off selected Christmas sleepwear for the whole family. Hurry, don't miss out.
The holidays are a time for giving. Some folks give socks, others give headaches. Save 30% on average.
While Nostradamus' quatrains are open to interpretation, they serve as reminders of humanity's vulnerability. Whether or not 2025 fulfills the seer's ominous visions, the risks they hint at are undeniable. From addressing climate change to bolstering healthcare systems.
Yeah, saying 305 on my end, Di. So when I hung up yesterday, I had 167 views recorded. So we've had another 150 look at it, which is good. That's 300 views for that actual stream. So people want to know about the rapture. So I'll do some more on it.
And resolving resource conflicts. Our collective response will determine whether these prophecies remain allegorical warnings or become grim realities. The true message of Nostradamus, perhaps, lies not in fear, but in action. His cryptic warnings compel us to confront the fragility of human civilization and the need for resilience in the face of uncertainty. Indigenous traditions from various cultures around the world often emphasize the concept of cyclical destruction and renewal, viewing time not as linear, but as a series of repeating cycles or ages. These cycles are interconnected with the natural world, and the well-being of humanity is intricately linked to the health of the earth. In these wisdom traditions, periods of destruction are not seen as mere punishment, but as necessary catalysts for rebirth and renewal, essential for restoring balance when it is lost. This cyclical view of life acknowledges that destruction is not an end, but a transition, a call for humanity to realign with the rhythms of the earth, restore harmony, and reawaken to a more sustainable way of living. Among the many indigenous prophecies, the Hopi prophecy stands as a powerful reminder of the consequences of humanity's disconnection from nature. The Hopi, an ancient Native American tribe with roots in the southwestern United States, speak of a time of purification that will arrive when humanity loses its way. According to the prophecy, this period will be marked by widespread diseases, social upheaval, and environmental calamities, signs of humanity's detachment from the sacred balance of nature. The Hopi believe that the earth is a living entity, and the imbalance caused by humanity's disregard for natural laws will inevitably lead to suffering, manifesting as pandemics, natural disasters, and wars. These crises are not random or coincidental, but are seen as part of a divine process of purification, a warning, and an opportunity for humanity to return to a state of harmony with the earth. The Hopi wisdom teaches that to avert these disasters, people must re-establish their connection to the land, the spirits, and the natural cycles of life. Only through repentance, humility, and reverence for the earth can the cycle of destruction be interrupted, leading to healing and renewal. Similarly, the Mayan civilization, known for its advanced knowledge of astronomy and its intricate calendar systems, also viewed time as a series of cycles. The Mayan long count calendar, which spans thousands of years, describes a series of world ages, each one representing a different era in the evolution of the earth and its inhabitants. According to Mayan cosmology, each world age is followed by a period of destruction and renewal, which can manifest as cataclysmic events, earthquakes, floods, and other natural disasters that serve as a means of restoring cosmic balance. The Mayans believed that humanity faces trials within each of these cycles, and these challenges are integral to the process of spiritual growth and collective evolution. In the Mayan worldview, destruction is not seen as something to fear, but as an inevitable and necessary step toward renewal. The Mayan calendar, which famously predicted the end of the world in 2012, actually indicated the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. This end was not a final destruction, but a transition into a new era. The Mayans understood that the trials humanity faces, often brought about by natural calamities or health crises, are opportunities for spiritual awakening, growth, and the restoration of balance. Through these periods of difficulty, humanity is forced to reevaluate its relationship with nature, its dependence on the earth, and its responsibility for maintaining harmony with all living things. Both the Hopi and Mayan prophecies emphasize the critical importance of living in harmony with the environment.
I,
The
I could tell you hear that as soon as I saw all the coloured hands.
natural world, with its cycles of growth, decay, and rebirth, is seen as a mirror of human existence. Just as nature experiences destruction and renewal, so too do human societies. However, when humanity disregards its role as stewards of the earth, it disrupts the delicate balance of nature, leading to suffering and chaos. Indigenous wisdom teaches that when we live in alignment with the rhythms of the earth, honoring the seasons, the elements, and the interconnectedness of all life, we can avert the suffering that comes from imbalance and destruction. These teachings serve as a profound warning for modern societies, which often prioritize economic growth, technological advancement, and short-term gains over long-term ecological sustainability. In a world that increasingly disconnects from nature, the cycles of destruction and renewal that indigenous cultures speak of become more relevant than ever. Climate change, pandemics, and ecological disasters are modern-day manifestations of the ancient prophecies, signs that humanity must shift its trajectory before the natural world forces a reckoning. To avert further destruction, indigenous wisdom offers a path of renewal. This path is one of humility, respect for nature, and a return to sacred practices that honor the earth. The rituals, ceremonies, and traditions passed down through generations of indigenous peoples serve as guides for reconnecting with the land, the elements, and the spiritual forces that govern life. Whether it is through rituals of thanksgiving, offerings to the spirits, or living in alignment with the cycles of nature, these practices remind humanity of its deep connection to the earth. As we face the trials of our own time, these ancient teachings encourage us to rediscover our place in the natural world, to restore balance where it has been lost, and to heal the wounds inflicted on the earth. Through collective action, spiritual awakening, and a commitment to living sustainably, we can participate in the cycle of renewal, ensuring that the destruction foretold by indigenous prophecies does not become our final chapter, but rather a turning point in our shared story. The earth is always ready to renew itself, and through aligning with its rhythms, humanity can rediscover its place in the grand, eternal cycle of life. In astrology and spiritual traditions, the number 7 is imbued with profound significance. This number often symbolizes cycles of transformation, divine intervention, and karmic lessons that mark pivotal moments in individual and collective evolution. The number 7 represents a period of reflection, awakening, and alignment with deeper truths. It is a number of introspection, suggesting a time for humanity to face its shadow side and undergo profound spiritual growth. The 7-year cycle, often noted in both Western astrology and Eastern traditions, reflects a period of profound change. Each 7-year phase represents an unfolding of new energies, insights, and lessons. And as we approach a significant period, such as the year 2025, the influence of 7 may call upon us to confront unresolved karmic issues and embrace the need for transformation. In numerology, 7 is the number of introspection and spiritual awakening, urging individuals to look within and embrace a more elevated perspective on life. In astrology, the number 7 aligns with Neptune, the planet of intuition, spirituality, and dreams. Neptune's influence draws attention to the need for collective healing and spiritual awakening. As Neptune's energy permeates the atmosphere, the number 7 can act as a harbinger of necessary shifts, urging the collective consciousness to transcend materialism, reconnect with spirituality, and address long-standing global issues. This may be a
Okay, this sounds a little bit new age now.
time when humanity must collectively face its darker tendencies, from greed to environmental exploitation, in order to evolve to a higher state of being. In the modern world, we are witnessing a confluence of crises and transformations that echo the age-old prophecies linked to the number 7 and its symbolism of reckoning and spiritual awakening. These issues may not be the plagues foretold in traditional scriptures, but they share an uncanny resemblance to the trials humanity faces today. From climate crisis to social unrest, the number 7 seems to reflect a year of cosmic significance where humanity must reckon with the choices that have led us to this point. Scientists and environmental experts have been warning for years about the increasing impact of climate change on our planet. As the Earth's climate destabilizes, the risk of health crises grows exponentially. Rising global temperatures, extreme weather events, and the spread of vector-borne diseases like malaria, dengue, and Lyme disease are threatening to accelerate. The combination of these environmental shifts creates a perfect storm for pandemics and health challenges that are already straining global healthcare systems. In spiritual and astrological contexts, the coming years could be seen as a reckoning period aligning with the transformative and karmic energies of the number 7. Could the plagues of 2025 represent a convergence of these environmental and health crises, calling for humanity to confront the consequences of its negligence and the exploitation of natural resources? The number 7's connection to divine intervention may suggest that the earth itself is calling for healing, a reminder to respect and protect the delicate balance of life that sustains us. The increasing inequality between the wealthy and the impoverished is fueling social unrest around the globe. Economic systems built on the exploitation of resources and labor are crumbling, and resource shortages are becoming more widespread. As the global population faces job insecurity, mounting debt, and the loss of basic necessities, tensions are rising. Astrologically, this could be interpreted as a period of reckoning, a time when the injustices of the past cannot remain hidden any longer. The symbolism of seven suggests that these societal plagues are tests for humanity's capacity to unite, heal, and adapt. The collective shadow of greed, corruption, and disregard for the welfare of others may be brought to the forefront in order for society to evolve. As these challenges unfold, they may serve as the catalyst for profound transformation, offering the potential for a global awakening and a shift toward more equitable and compassionate systems. The rapid advancement of technology in areas such as artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and genetic engineering is bringing humanity to the brink of an ethical reckoning. The unbridled pace at which technology is progressing raises critical questions about its ethical implications. Can we control the technology we create, or is it moving beyond our ability to regulate it? Some spiritual traditions and prophecies warn that humanity's disregard for natural laws and ethical boundaries may result in unforeseen consequences, what might be seen as the plagues of our own making. Technology's unchecked growth, coupled with the tendency for corporations and governments to prioritize profit over the greater good, may lead to a dystopian future marked by surveillance, loss of privacy, and the dehumanization of the individual. Astrologically, these trends align with the transformative energy of the number 7, urging a reconsideration of our values and the need to return to ethical practices rooted in respect for life, individuality, and the natural world. The influence of Neptune, symbolizing the dream world and spiritual insight, reminds us that unchecked technological progress, without a deep ethical foundation, can lead to chaos and suffering. As we move into the next cycle, the lessons of Seven may push humanity to recalibrate its relationship with technology, fostering a more sustainable and spiritually aligned path forward. The symbolic significance of Seven, particularly in the context of global challenges, is deeply intertwined with spiritual transformation and the need for humanity to face its shadow. The coming years may very well serve as a year of reckoning for all of humanity, where the forces of transformation demand that we can.
Last, I've seen a lot of videos on them drones. They seem to be plasma balls, balls of plasma, and they respond to questions. So there's more to this drone stuff than what we think.
Confront our past mistakes, heal old wounds, and work toward collective evolution. As we face the convergence of crises, be they environmental, social, or technological, the number 7 reminds us that true progress comes not from avoiding difficult truths, but from embracing them and learning from our collective experiences. In this astrological cycle, we may be called to transcend old paradigms of greed, exploitation, and separation, and move toward a more harmonious, sustainable, and compassionate future. Whether this means reckoning with the environmental disasters we have caused, addressing the societal inequalities we have ignored, or confronting the ethical dilemmas posed by our technological advances, the energy of 7 asks us to evolve spiritually and collectively. This may be our time to face the plagues of our own making and, in doing so, transform them into opportunities for global healing and awakening. As humanity faces the complex challenges brought on by cosmic, environmental, and social upheaval, both spiritual and practical remedies are essential for navigating the 7 plagues, be it natural disasters, pandemics, or social unrest. The blending of astrological insights with grounded actions can offer a path toward healing and alignment in this tumultuous time. Rituals for alignment. In times of significant astrological events, such as eclipses or planetary retrogrades, grounding rituals help align the body, mind, and spirit with the universe's transformative energies. These events are more than mere celestial phenomena. They are pivotal moments when energies intensify, and the veil between the material and spiritual realms thins to harness their power. Meditation. Engage in deep meditation to center your energy and attune to higher frequencies. Focus on grounding exercises like imagining roots growing from your body into the earth, connecting you to her stabilizing energy. Sound healing. Use sound vibrations, such as singing bowls or chanting mantras, to recalibrate your energy fields. Certain frequencies can break through negative energies and recalibrate the body's natural rhythm. Crystal work. Utilize crystals like black tourmaline, amethyst, and selenite during these times. These stones are known for their protective qualities, as they can clear negative energy and create a shield around the auric field.
Okay, we all know this is crap, but it's interesting to see what they're thinking.
Lay them on your body or meditate with them to enhance clarity and protection. Herbal and natural defensive.
Actually, this is getting really bad. I don't think we can keep watching this. Okay, let's do some Josh.
And the end times.
We can go back to the ancient church.
2025 and beyond. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. I just did an interview with someone else talking about.
It's true, but hey, Di, we couldn't keep watching that. It was too new age.
Events that are going to happen in 2025, but you've discovered in the Dead Sea Scrolls, I mean, these are ancient scrolls that are talking about the time that we're living in now and the end times.
We can go back to the ancient church fathers, and they taught as well, because they got this from the Essenes. The Essenes took the Great Commission and went and made disciples, and some of those disciples are what we would call the early church fathers. And a lot of them talk about how there's going to be 6,000 years of human history and then a 1,000-year Sabbath, just like there's 6 days of a week and there's a Sabbath after that on the seventh day. And then after that, everything would be recreated. There'd be a new heavens and new earth. So the church fathers got that from the Essenes. Well, they also split up this time period into certain segments. So the way that we have, years and centuries and millennia, they had Shemitahs, which was a 7-year period. Then they had Jubilees, which was a 50-year period. They had Onas, which is a 500-year period, and then they had Ages, which is a 2,000-year period. And in their view, there would be it's four. They would call it 4 ages, but it's basically like 3.5. So there would be from the time of creation till the call of Abraham. That's the first age. That's the first 2,000 years, and that's called either the age of creation or the age of chaos. Then the second one, the age of Torah, started at the call of Abraham and went until 75 AD. So just a few years right after the temple was destroyed. And then according to the Essenes, the last age would be from 75, or there's a church age. The last age would be the millennial age, but the church age, they actually called it the Age of Grace, which is amazing that they even called it that in the Dead Sea Scrolls, again, 200 years before Christ was born. But they said that would last from 75 AD to 2075 AD. Now, what's really interesting about that doesn't necessarily mean, if the Essenes are right, that we have to wait until 2075 for Christ to return. That's not exactly what that means. So while these time periods, you can basically set these time periods in stone, you can't really set the events that occur in stone. So for example, the final Jubilee, the final 50 years of the Age of Torah was between 25 AD and 75 AD. Well, think about Jesus' ministry. That was really early on. That would have been from 29, somewhere around 29 AD to 32 AD. It would have been somewhere around there. Would have been the ministry of Christ. Well, that is really early on in that final Jubilee of the Torah age. The Torah age didn't end until 75 AD, and it's not that a certain event happened in 75 AD that caused anything. It was just that was the time where the next age was to begin. So a lot of prophecies had to be fulfilled in that time. Well, and you see this at the end of each age too. You see like the final Jubilee, there's a lot of chaotic stuff and a lot of miracles. So the end of the age of creation was the whole Tower of Babel incident. The end of the age of Torah was the first coming of Christ and everything. And a lot of those prophecies were wrapped up well before the age of grace technically started. So we could see that again in our time. We could see we're going to be hitting 2025, and technically because the calendars are a little, the Essene calendar is different from our Gregorian calendar. Technically, the beginning of the final Jubilee of our age would be early to mid-March of 2026, technically. But suffice to say, I make a note of that in the book, and then I say, it's just really a lot easier to say like 2025 because that's like where everything's wrapping up, because 2025 to 2075. But we could see a similar thing that we saw in the age of Torah. We could have all of these prophecies, including the tribulation and everything. We could have that happen early in our final Jubilee. I mean, that could happen next year. That could happen in a few years from now. We don't have to wait all the way till 2075. Now, Jesus could do that. He could decide that he's going to wait till 2075. But all it means is that by the year 2075, 2076, everything should be in place for us to start the millennial age, to start for Christ to start his millennial age. And think about all of the things that need to be fulfilled. It's not just we have a 7-year tribulation, Jesus returns, and then that's it. There's still a lot of things. When you read the end of the book of Ezekiel, there's a brand new temple and a brand new city. How long is it going to take for that to be built? Well, the temple of Herod took about 40 years. And I don't think that Jesus is just going to come down and, again, just snap his fingers and a temple and city are going to appear. I think that's going to need to be built. And so if that takes 40 years, well, you subtract that from, or 40 or 50 years, you subtract that.
But Jerusalem's already built because it comes out of the sky, doesn't it?
From 2075, and you end up really early in our final Jubilee where Jesus would return. So a lot of times when I talk about this, especially on my channel and other interviews and things, when I give that 2075 date, a lot of people get deflated because they're like, oh no, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to survive to 2075. And I say, look, it's okay. Like Jesus could come back. Like a lot of things can happen earlier on. And you can have, all the judgments of Jesus that gets performed when he returns. You can have all that stuff, and then you can still have decades where things need to get set up. How long does it take to notify the whole world of how things are now? Jesus is reigning, and emissaries from nations are expected to come to tabernacles, and and people have to beat their swords into plowshares. Like, how long does it take to get the whole world up on these new rules? It's not going to be overnight. And then again, especially with the new temple and the new city, and I take that totally literally in Ezekiel. That stuff takes time. So I believe it's very likely that we will have like the tribulation and all this stuff. And I'm not going to set a date to it, but I would expect that it would probably happen pretty early on in our final Jubilee, which would be from 2025 to 2075. I don't know exactly what year or anything, but probably pretty early on. Then when Jesus returns, take some time to clean. It's going to take some time for people to clean up the earth. It's going to take some time for all of there's like 4 different judgments that happen at that time. It's going to take some time to build all this stuff and basically get the world ready for the millennial reign, so that by 2075, by that year, everything will be done. Everything will be set in place for the millennial reign of Christ. So to me, that's really exciting. We're living in prophetic and very exciting times.
Absolutely, yeah. When I first, saw the end of the age being at 2075, yes, I was one of those people too that went, oh no, with everything that's going on, oh my goodness. And then I would be 1,000 years old by then. So anyway, but when I saw the pattern of what you were talking about, like at the end of the second age, the age of Torah, that Jesus, he died and was resurrected towards the beginning of that Jubilee, which was, so it wasn't at, if it was at 75 that happened, then I'd be like, look at that pattern. But it was the beginning of that, and then I went, it was like, okay, great. Another
Probably happened early for the rest of the age to settle.
way in the Dead Sea Scrolls points to around 2025, which is crazy. And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to my channel, put a like on it, and also share the video. Josh, your information is so very interesting. Now, as far as the calendar, before we go on to another way of measuring time, with the solar calendar, like, okay, if we think that Rosh Hashanah is in September, how far off is it?
Yeah, a lot of those festival and feast days are different on the Essene calendar. But I will say though, because a lot of people, what I don't want people to think is, oh, what calendar should we be following? Because that's not exactly right. This was something for Israel. Now we can look at these calendars and see if anything prophetic happens on certain days. But there were dates on the Pharisee calendar as well, the lunar calendar, where Jesus did fulfill them on those dates. And the way that I look at it is, Jesus will meet you where you are. And I think that that's what he was doing. So we do see fulfillments definitely on the Essene calendar for sure, by and large, but Jesus even took time to fulfill some of what was expected on the Pharisee calendar as well. So yeah, there are feast days that are totally and wildly different on the Essene calendar, but then again, according to the Essene interpretation, they believe they had the correct days, where when they did these rituals, they did these festivals, these feast days, that those were the exact same days that the angels were performing their duties in the heavenly temple for that day too. So the way that I look at it for us today, it's like, well, the vast majority of us, not all of us, but the vast majority of us are Gentile believers. So we're not beholden to, we're not required to follow any calendar really. But I look at it more as a point of study. It's really interesting. You can find prophetic things in there that might lend some clues as to what's coming, what's ahead, what to look for prophetically. But I think there are times that you can find that on the modern Jewish calendar as well, because, like I said, again, even during Jesus' ministry, he fulfilled things on both calendars. More so on the Essene calendar, but he did fulfill things on both. So I don't have any problem with somebody who wants to look at the modern Jewish calendar and try to figure out if something's happening there. Very, very well could be. So I say check out both calendars. I think they're both interesting. And also look historically at what things have been fulfilled on each of these calendars and just compare the two. And so, yeah, I encourage people to do that.
Okay, now I'd like you to explain with the book.
It kept correcting.
Book of Enoch, another way of measuring time. I found this absolutely fascinating, of the 10 700-year periods. Yeah, can you explain?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, this is really interesting. So in the book of Enoch, it's chapters, I believe, I have it in the book, I think it's like 93 and 96 or something like that. I have it in the book and I lay it all out. But Enoch, he's got a different way of splitting up these time periods. Now, he would have still adhered to the solar calendar. This is more of a prophetic way of dividing up the same amount of time. So it doesn't conflict with the solar calendar. They went by the solar calendar. They didn't necessarily go by this calendar. It's not even really a calendar. It's what Enoch was doing was splitting up the times a little different into 700-year periods, where essentially every day is 100 years in this 7,000 year time period. So he split the 7,000 year time period into 10 different sections of 700 years, and he gave a prophecy for each of those, for all 10. And again, the latest that people can say that this was written, the absolute latest, would have been around 200 BC. It couldn't have been written any later than that. So I think actually Enoch's a lot older than that. What we have are copies, but let's just say that 200 BC date is accurate. That's the latest that Enoch could have been written, including this prophecy. So you can get up to about the 5th or 6th week, and you can say, well, of course, that's all history to somebody who's living in 200 BC. But then after that, you can't really say that anymore. I mean, in the prophecies, I mean, you have the Protestant Reformation described in there. Obviously, you have the Great Commission, people becoming Christians. But what's really interesting about it is where we are in that time. So we would be in the 9th week, and he calls these sections weeks because they're 700-year periods where every day is 100 years. We right now are in the 9th week out of 10, and we are smack dab in the middle of it. 2025 is the exact middle of the 9th week. And what the prophecy says about the 9th week, it says that this is the time where the judgment of the angels is going to happen, where the vanquishment of evil is going to happen, basically the return of the Messiah. That's what this week is known for. So, you know, when we, and then the 10th week is all about the millennium and stuff, because by the time the 10th week starts, the world is already about 300 years into the millennium. So it's all about that. But so, you know, we might ask, well, why would we look at the middle point of that week? This whole prophecy it has a certain structure to it that's called chiastic. It has a chiastic structure, meaning it's like a palindrome. So the first week and the 10th week relate to each other in some way. They're structured similarly. And so in the first week, it talks about in the 7th part of that week, this and this is going to happen. And then in the 10th week, it also talks about the 7th part. You don't see that in any of the other ones. Now, in week 2, it says something, it refers to something about in the middle of that week in 2. Well, with this chiastic structure, the pair of week 2 would be week 9. That would be us. So that's why we look at the middle part there, and we would say, okay, somewhere around the middle, we should expect this to happen. And it's not an exact, I mean, 2025 is the exact date. That's the middle of this week, but that doesn't necessarily mean that those events are going to happen on exactly 2025. It's somewhere around the middle. Like in the 2nd week, it talks about the flood, and it talks about Noah, and his birth was 6 years off from the exact middle point, but it's still generally the middle. So that's why we can't be too exact when it comes to exact dates. It's more generally around that time. So generally somewhere around the time of the middle of the 9th week, we should see the tribulation, we should see the return of the Messiah, we should see the judgment of the angels, all of that stuff. And so we're right there. We're a few years, according, if this is right, we're a few years away from that. And then you have the rest of the weeks in the middle. They don't give any kind of time signature for what part of the week to look at. They're just general. In this week, this and this happens. But to me, the most fascinating part of that prophecy is seeing that, again, that date, 2025, 2026, that comes up again, even in this other prophetic time count that Enoch writes about. And it points again to really the time period that we're living in now. So I would expect something significant in the next 2-3 years. We should start seeing some more prophecies being fulfilled. We're already seeing that. I mean, we've been seeing that since Israel became a nation again. So in a way, that's nothing new. But that should increase, but also miracles and things like that. We should see an increase in that too. Also, unfortunately, a big increase in apostasy, because that was another big marker for the end of the last jubilee of an age. Is there's massive apostasy. We clearly saw that at the end of the age of Torah with the Pharisees and everything. I mean, they killed Jesus, so that's obviously there's apostasy happening there. But also at the end of the age of creation with the Tower of Babel, that's an apostasy. So and then when you look at the world today, we live in a world here in 2024, 2025. In our time today, we live in a time that I think sometimes we take for granted how weird it is, how weird it is that the world works the way it does. The world has never worked like this before with all this technology and everything that we have now. We take it for granted because we're born into it. But think about it. It really was not that long ago that we were in horse and buggies. And now we're shooting rockets, into space, and we have orbiting satellites, and everybody's connected through the internet, and it's just a completely unprecedented time. And when you think about it, there's no reason that it had to be our time where that could have happened. The Greeks could have done that. They had the same math. They had the same materials, raw materials. They had the same intelligence. They could have created an automobile. They could have had an industrial revolution. There's no reason why they couldn't have had that. But I think something was restraining that. And I think that restrainer, I think the veil is kind of thinning now. And it's allowing a lot more of these things to happen. You know, another thing from the book of Enoch, we read that when the 200 watchers fell, they essentially gave a type of technology to mankind that they didn't have. And it was, you know, through war and things, cutting of roots, astrology. But they didn't have access to that before, and they gave them that. So that makes me wonder if the veil is thinning, if the restrainer is loosening, you know, however we want to define that. Is it easier for fallen angels to provide mankind with, you know, maybe not like swords and cutting of roots like it was before, but now, you know, microchips and technology and the internet. And I'm not. Oh, my daughter came in to say hi. Hey, okay, I'm doing an interview, sweetheart. I love you. Go see Mama. Sorry about that. It's totally fine if you wanted to leave that in there.
It's totally
she does
fine.
she does that in a lot of my videos. But anyway, yeah, she's adorable. She's my whole heart. But so just thinking about, like, is it possible that we've now in this time, where it absolutely could have been possible to do this before, but now in this time, because we're getting so late into our church age, into our age of grace, is that veil thinning? Is that restrainer loosening? And does that allow evil agents to bestow upon us technology that we might not have been able to create on our own when when the veil is more in full effect? And I think that's very likely, because how else do we explain just how weird and different, and how much it changes year by year? I mean, I was born in the 80s, and even that was pretty technological compared to the rest of the world. But it's a totally different world today than what it was. I didn't have the internet when I grew up. We didn't have tablets. Cell phones weren't a thing. Cordless phones were just starting to become a thing, but everybody still had a landline. And today, you know, I didn't have a computer. I had a typewriter. But today, it's after 40 short years later. It's a totally different world, and it's getting so advanced I can't even keep up with it. Like my kids are able to. My 5-year-old is able to, like, do stuff on her tablet, and it's like, how did you even learn how to do that? Like, how did you learn how to find that app? And you know, we're careful with it. There's all sorts of protections and stuff, and she just has, like, kids teaching apps and stuff. But she's able to log in. She's able to put her passcode in. Like, it's like I never would have been able to figure that out when I was 5 years old in 1989. So it's just crazy to think about. So I think that it's very telling why this year 2025, 2026, why this time period that we're living in keeps coming up in the Dead Sea Scrolls. I think it's incredibly prophetic, and I think we're about to see a lot of crazy stuff, both good and bad, in our near future.
Amen.
Does nobody see we're making Skynet like Rick? Hey everyone, welcome to Prophecy Roundtable. Tonight we are going to be looking at some prophecies that might be coming to pass in 2025. Now I want to give a full disclaimer, man. I don't know when the Lord's going back, but things are crazy, right? I mean, goodness, what happened in Syria? Of course, things are going crazy in the Middle East. We have technology. I don't know. I keep thinking we're making.
Okay, this is 8 days old, guys.
Skynet from Terminator. Like, I just keep wondering, like, does nobody see we're making Skynet, like, right at the very moment, right? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But to help us decode what is going to maybe happen this next year, we have a special guest, Abraham Ojeda. He used to live in the Denver area. He moved away, sadly. But it's great to have him back. And, of course, everybody else on the show. So, hey, it's so great to have you with us, Abraham. And, of course, my other two amazing co-hosts. And also, we want to let people know that we just started a Telegram group.
Not big on the guy on the right-hand side, top right. He's a bit of a know-it-all.
Put the invitation in the chat, so please do sign up. We're keeping it private for now. We may change it to public, but we wanted to at least have a place where we can all just kind of chat, or kind of keep it on prophecy kind of stuff. That's the basic idea. All right. And we will be monitoring it. So if you get too out of line, you're out. But let's just have fun. Let's have a great discussion. So yeah, that's it. Hey, Abraham, great. Thanks for being here, and kind of give us a rundown of your ministry, your insights, what you've been working on. We'll love to hear it.
Yes, guys, first of all, seriously, I thank you from the bottom of my heart just for inviting me on. I remember watching you, Doug, your channel and your work back in 2016, man. So when let me just run back, okay? If I was not really born into a Christian household, I kind of was, but it was very nominal. But I got into drugs as a teen, and my parents were kind of in damage control mode. And so I basically ended up going to church a lot from the ages 14 onward. And I really heard the gospel message as a little kid one time at a Spanish church. So Spanish is my first language. Doug, you totally nailed my last name, Ojeda. You got it right. Appreciate that, brother. I know you speak Spanish too. But so anyways, fast forwarding, I heard God at these mega churches. I knew it wasn't the guy on stage, right? Because I went to a lot of mega churches with my parents, and God bless them, they did the best they could, and ultimately, I ended up making a decision for Christ when I was 16, right around there. Ended up going to, because I wanted to be serious, right? I wanted to be a good Christian.
Right, of course.
I went to Pensacola Christian College, 4-year college. I didn't study just seminary studies in that, but I always took Bible courses. It's required to graduate. I ended up becoming a chemist. Actually, when I first met your congregation, which I'll get to in a second, Doug, I was working as a chemist in Denver, newlywed. Met my wife in New Orleans. We moved to Denver together, and long story short, we, as a married couple, back in 2016 and 17 was a big year for both me and my wife. Our journeys are very much intermixed, obviously with coming to Torah, right? So right. All my life I had been in Sunday Christian churches, Sunday Christian atmospheres, and something just didn't add up. We've all been there. It's like, why are we eating Passover, or we're not eating Passover lamb, we're eating, Easter ham. What's up with all the Christmas trees? What's up with all the stuff? What are the roots of it? The more we dug, and the more we were like, something's not right. Let me just keep digging. Let me figure out what's so disconnected from what I see with the apostles, with the book of Acts.
More than I thought.
So disconnected from what I'm seeing. And so actually, Doug, your ministry was one of the first ministries that I really came across. I'm trying to think of who else was around that time. There was Mark Hall, Shabbat Shalom Mesa. There was your ministry, and there was Restoration Messianic over in Boulder area. But that was really far away. I think Lighthouse, I checked them out. But I was searching, guys. I was hungry. And Yeshua HaMashiach did not let me down. I have been filled over and above. But it hasn't always been an easy journey either. And I'd love to share some of those things with you guys, if that's cool. Yeah, because, we were called out of the Denver metro. It's just something that had been on our hearts for a long time. So right now I live about 8 hours away from the Denver metro where I was living. I lived there for 3 years. And, long story short, that's just, a lot of us that get into, okay, let's go back and embrace our Hebrew ancestry, who we are in Christ, our identity. A lot of us get agriculturally minded. I was one of those that was led that way. And so, these days I'm an off-grid shepherd. This is all solar power run, what I'm doing here, right? Which is really cool. I never thought I'd be in this position, but God has blessed me tremendously. We have sheep and goats. We're kind of focusing on meat this year, hopefully a little bit more, wool production and stuff like that. We got a lot of things we're trying to figure out. So that's a little bit of my story, and just going from the city, coming here. Maybe we can talk about some off-grid stuff, some prepper survival stuff, because I know, like you said, the world is very unstable right now. We see a lot of World War III geopolitics stuff. It's really crazy. Unprecedented things, like a country like Syria collapsing overnight and falling into the hands of extremists, terrorist organizations. So, you know, it's unstable. Maybe we can talk about some of those things. I do want to share one thing too, though, if I may, just talking about something that, so you had mentioned, you know, what are you doing with ministry? What are you doing with that kind of thing right now? I'd like to touch on that. Sorry, I know it's a little long-winded of an intro, guys, but
It's all good.
yeah, I started a YouTube channel like a lot of us do, right? When we have a burden to reach people with, you know, the whole counsel of God. You know, we don't necessarily have it all figured out, but, you know, walking in Torah, walking in Yeshua, walking in the ancient path. And, you know, guys, I got to be totally honest with you. I've shared this, you know, testimony over on the YouTube channel quite a few times. In 2019, it was November. It was just a few months before the whole world changed in 2020. I was in a tough spot, actually, with my marriage and everything else, you know, really hit a rough patch. And I got to be honest with you guys, you know, even though I found Torah and I was blessed and it was really good and I understood it was the ancient path, like so many things were just confirmed to me. I struggled a lot, actually, with being very consistent in my walk, you know, and, you know, it's just, it was always kind of a struggle. There were some generational curses, addictions, you know, and I've come clean about those things with my wife and so forth, you know. But we were having a lot of rocky things going on. 2019 was very pivotal. There was one day where my wife's like, you know, let's just get a divorce and let's just go our separate ways. I know we built a homestead together. We did all these things, but let's just, you know, I'm like, yeah, I'm totally done too. And I woke up early the next morning, guys. This absolutely fundamentally changed my life. It's part of the journey and everything. So I'm so passionate about it. But I woke up in the morning early and I didn't want I didn't want to lose everything. I didn't want to, you know, split everything in half and go our separate ways and all this other nonsense. It's like, no, I was called to be married. I know I was. There's so much confirmation in everything I've been doing. Why is this such a struggle? And I was so broken, man. I was weeping. It was like 4 or 5 a.m. in my kitchen. My wife's asleep, and I just started crying to God, like, why has my walk with you been so difficult, guys? Because even when we, you know, get to this place of understanding the need for obedience, but we also understand the grace of Christ, even that was a struggle. So there's something in the way. And I opened up the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 4, and it talks about Yeshua being in the land of Zebulun and Naphtali, and the people there have seen a great light. And I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, because I'm like, God, I just need to hear something from you. And I opened up my Bible, and right when it says he was healing the sick, he was healing all kinds of people that were afflicted with infirmities, and he was casting out demons. The words just popped out of the page of me that day in November 2019. It was just like, bam. And I was like, oh, what does this mean? What do I do with this? And the Holy Spirit spoke to me. It's like, you need to cast out an unclean spirit from yourself. And I'm like, what? Well, no one's ever taught me to do this. I don't even know what this is. I'm like, all right. If this is what I said, I didn't even know what I was doing, guys. I said, if there is a demonic entity, unclean spirit, or something that's hindering my walk in Christ, come out right now in the name of Yeshua. Come out right now. And I laughed because I said it out loud, and I was kind of like laughing. I was like, did I just say that? And all of a sudden, a split second later, I felt a vibration in my chest, okay? And it vibrated up through my neck, and I felt like I was physically going to be sick because it went through my eyes, and I lost my vision, and then something lifted off of my head. And my first question in prayer, I was like, Lord, was that you? What was that? He's like, no, what did you just pray? And I was like, oh, it was a demon? It was really a demon? Like, this is real? This is actually, like, this is how the world works? This is, all that stuff I read in my Bible is actually applicable? Like, that actually happens. So that was the beginning of a great awakening for me. My life has never been the same since then. Launched Overcome Babylon Kingdom Secrets Academy in 2022. And so I've been at it for 2 years by God's grace. I never intended to do this type of stuff, but I wrote 2 books, Bible Prophecy Secrets 1 and 2. I give them away for free. Anybody can download them from my websites. So that has been the journey, man. And it's all been about prophecy. That's what God has really, you know, he's revealed a lot of things, and I would love to share some of those insights, but I'm just like you guys. I'm just like anybody else. I'm just a sinner saved by grace at the end of the day.
Well said. Well said.
What are you thinking is going to happen in 2025 based on your studies, timelines, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a good question, Scott. I mean,
Just jump right in.
You went to the throat.
there's so many.
No, I went for the topic that Joel.
Yeah, I know, that's true. I wanted this topic, so let's do it.
Okay, guys. So look, back about 8 to 9 months ago, whether it was TikTok or whether it was YouTube, everybody was talking about, is this the sign of Jonah? We're having a solar eclipse. Is it the sign of Jonah? Is sign of Jonah? Sign of Jonah?
Yeah, I
Like,
remember that.
everybody was talking about this. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about.
I remember that.
And then as soon as the solar eclipse, April 8th, 2024 came and went, it's like, oh, okay, guys, back to the regular grind. Let's talk about celebrities. Let's talk about this gossip. Let's talk about politics and this and this and this. And what I did, again, it's just something I put it out there for free, guys. Bible Prophecy Secrets 2. I talk about, hey, the main thing that I see right now, there's points of intersection. Okay, you guys all know this is the Hebrew letter Aleph. This is the Hebrew letter Aleph. There's an intersection of the total solar eclipses. Well, the 2023 is a partial, but you get my point. The paths of totality crossed over the Cascadia subduction zone. They crossed over the New Madrid seismic zone. And what a lot of people don't talk about is right here in Texas, there's what's called the Balcones fault line outside of San Antonio. In fact, the whole I-35 corridor running basically through every major city of Texas is on a fault line. And so I was like, wait a minute. And then you look at the historical patterns of eclipses. The 1811 New Madrid earthquakes, okay, it started in December of 1811. There was a 7.0 and a 7.5 in the same day, and then you had a 7.0 and another 7.0. Well, all those earthquakes, the hundreds of aftershocks, they even said that Mississippi flowed backwards. All those things commenced, but not without a warning sign. And it was actually 2 solar eclipses that made a cross right over the New Madrid in the 1800s. 1806 and 1811 were the 2. It was a 5-year cycle, and they crossed over the New Madrid. But I have more cycles than that. So I've studied a lot of cycles because you guys know the way that God works, the way the Hebrew works is things are very cyclical. You know, so even if you look at something that's been fulfilled in the past, like Hosea chapter 5, a new moon is going to devour you, Ephraim, Israel. Well, when Israel was conquered, something apparently happened on a new moon. Maybe we should be watching out for a new moon over the United States, over end times Israel. Maybe we should be looking for, you know, cyclical ways of looking at the Bible. And that's exactly what I have discovered. So what I'm seeing, one of the first major things in 2025, earthquakes, big ones. I'm talking 7.0 and up. And we recently saw one in California. I did a video about this on Overcome Babel on the YouTube channel. We did 7.0 right outside of Cape Mendocino, California. That was on December 5th, I think it was, but I'm a little rusty on that. Maybe it's 5th or 6th, but it was a big one, and it even shook, you know, homes. I mean, it was big, but it didn't have quite the structure to cause a tsunami, to cause bigger devastation. But that's, so Cape Mendocino right there is the southernmost tip of the Cascadia subduction zone, which again, that's where that intersection was of the 2023 and 2017 solar eclipses. And so the intersections are the places that matter. So thoughts on that, guys? I'd love to see what you guys think about all that so far. Have you heard about these things? I know people have covered it, but I've made a point to really be very specific. We should be looking for these things.
I'm just glad it's going to happen in Texas. So looks like Colorado was left off the. This is good. This is good news, guys. This means we can ski until the apocalypse. Come on, look on the bright side here. You can,
I have never been an earthquake studier, but again, from a standpoint of that is certainly going to be one of the signs as far as when we're approaching the end, which I believe they are, then that should be one of the signs is there's going to be earthquakes in diverse places. A little earthquake in California or whatever is not a big deal, but you start seeing earthquakes in places that, at least during my lifetime, we haven't seen. I can see how that would certainly be Yah's way of trying to wake up his people, get people to repent. And so, that earthquakes has not been my forte, though, Abraham. So when I'm ignorant on something, I would just go, yeah, I'm pretty ignorant.
Okay, so when I was writing my book back in 2010, I was writing about the New Madrid fault line blowing up, and basically I was trying to pattern it after 1811, 1812. And so I was just praying every morning, hey, God, if you've got anything interesting for me, throw it at me, get it to me. And so my next door neighbor and I did not talk very much, but he happened to wander over as I was typing on my book. And he said, hey, I want to show you my book.
I had no idea what that is, Di.
And I said, what's this? He said, it's about fault lines. And he said, I think you need to be aware of this. I don't know why, but I think you need to be aware of it, that there's the mid-continent fault line that goes across America. Basically, it follows the point that Abraham just listed, basically close to I-80, all the way across to New Jersey. And if that blew at the same time as the New Madrid fault line, it would form a water cross across America. Okay, where the Michigan, Lake Michigan, other Great Lakes would drain out into the
Did he say a watered cross? If that's so, wow.
New Madrid area, and then it would also fill east-west across the the mid-continent fault line. And so that was kind of cool. I mean, that would be a sign from God, wouldn't it be? And if we divide Israel at some point in time, it seems like the earthquakes are going to happen, and we will be divided also. So throw it back to you, Abraham.
Yeah, one cycle I would like to touch on too, because it took a lot of digging to find this one. Let me tell you. Whew. You go to a historical eclipse cycle over the United States, before the United States is even officially a country, right? 1694 to 1701. You have 2 annular solar eclipses, and the 1694 one went right through Tahlequah, Oklahoma, which was the capital of it is the capital of Cherokee Nation. It wasn't at that time, but they eventually migrated westward, and an ancient Ketua or Cherokee prophecy was actually fulfilled, and that solar eclipse preceded the fulfillment of the prophecy that was received amongst the natives, which they believed in Yahweh. That's how they refer to Yahweh or Yehovah. Yahweh. They said if they fell away from their traditions, because apparently they had very Hebrew traditions too. I've looked into it, and I've had a buddy of mine, Jeff Fletcher, on the Overcome Babylon podcast. He's broken out a lot of these things. But if they fell away, they would be subject to Elohim's judgment. Well, that's exactly what happened. Trail of Tears, right? Happened later in the 1800s. But before all that happened, there was a solar eclipse that went right through Tahlequah, and it exited the country. So obviously from south to east to northeast, exited right over Washington, D.C. So that's 1694. You had an annular solar eclipse. Then 7 years later, no, what is that? Yeah, 7 years later, 2017 to 2024, that was a 7. Ancient Assyria, 770 BC to 763, that was a 7-year cycle. There's another one coming up. Maybe we can talk about that more. There's going to be another solar eclipse crossover Egypt, end times Egypt, which is very relevant for Isaiah chapter 19, the fulfillment of Isaiah 19. But going back to 1694, 1701, you have this solar eclipse cycle. They don't cross, they don't intersect anywhere. One of them, like I said, Tahlequah, Oklahoma to Washington, D.C. Then in 1701, there was the Cascadia subduction zone solar eclipse. It was this annular solar eclipse. It happened on, I believe it was February. I don't have the exact date, but it was 1701. Now, here's what happened back in those days. Talking about earthquakes, talking about seismology, researchers, because of the coastal sedimentary records over there on the coast, Pacific Northwest, they have been able to determine, okay, these are the records. This is what it looked like. We have oral traditions we have from the Native Americans, but we also have records and documents from the Japanese at that time that there was, in fact, a megathrust earthquake. It was the 1700 megathrust earthquake, and it happened on January 26th, 1700. That was a 9.0, guys. That's their estimate, 9.0. We're talking about tsunami waves 85 to 100 feet tall. The entire Pacific Northwest, as we know it, would be inundated. It would take maybe years, months, I don't know, for the water to recede back into the ocean. But here's the thing. That earthquake happened, the big one, they call it the big one, the megathrust, 9-pointer. The tsunami was so powerful, it didn't just hit the West Coast, Pacific Northwest. It went all the way to Japan a day later. And every single village that was not above, at least 50 feet above sea level on Japan. Think about how far that is, man. If you guys have flown from, I don't know, from LA to Hawaii, if you've gone across the pond, in that direction, it's a long ways. But 50 feet, apparently it was at least 50-foot waves hit Japan in those days. Now, remember, there's a solar eclipse. We're talking about a specific period of time, 1694 to 1701. So you had that megathrust earthquake, 9-pointer. Before that, exactly 30 days before that, you had a Christmas Day earthquake in the New Madrid, which French missionaries were like, wow, this is really big. The Native Americans also wrote about it. It was a big one in New Madrid, the seismic zone there. Obviously, you know, I've been talking about it, but it's right there in Missouri, but it really hits all those states, Tennessee, Arkansas, you know, all those states get affected, and even up to upstate New York can be affected because of how massive, when the New Madrid goes off, it's massive. And so that happened 30 days later, then you have the megathrust and the Cascadia. So these things are very connected, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Wow. I mean, that's a lot of detail. Okay, so kind of bringing home for us, what do you potentially see happening in 2025 or 6 or 7? I mean, we don't have to stay right on that year, but I mean, what are the implications for
The
us?
immediate future.
Spoon feed me here, because you've
Sure.
done a lot of research, and I'm trying to follow what are the implications for us.
So
Aside from
in order to, we always talk about this, we hear about this all the time, right? Especially you guys are teachers, you're the same way. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. I say that all the time. It's, you know, we all do as teachers. So the main thing to do is to go back to ancient Assyria. And so what you'll do is in the Gospels, specifically Matthew, he does the best job. At the beginning of Christ's ministry, the Pharisees come up and they're like, hey, show us a sign. And Jesus is like, no, you're not going to get a sign. And then later on, like several chapters, I forget the exact chapters, but you have it early in Matthew and later, like chapter 16, if I'm not mistaken, the Pharisees ask him for a sign again later. And he's like, but they ask for a sign from heaven. And so Jesus is like, you guys know when the weather is, you know, fair, you know when it's fair. You know when it's threatening and dark, you know when it's threatening and dark. A storm is coming. It's going to be bad weather today. And he calls them hypocrites. And he says, a crooked and perverse generation seeks after a sign, but no sign shall be given to it except for the sign of the prophet Jonah. And so by implication, there's two implications. Number one, the sign of Jonah appears to every crooked and adulterous generation at some point. And I've demonstrated that through my research. The fall of nations, the rise and fall of empires from Babylon, indeed, yes, indeed, guys, all the way from Babylon, there's an eclipse cycle there, all the way to now, the rise and fall of empires has been accompanied by the sign of Jonah in different ways. And so with ancient Assyria, the second implication of what Yeshua said is it's celestial. Show us a sign from heaven. Celestial. So number one, any crooked generation gets it. Number two, celestial in nature. That's what we should be looking for, you know, just looking at Yeshua's words. And so when you go back, you go to NASA, you know, Eclipse Info, Eclipse Wise, you look at Espenak and all their records, you go to the 700s BC. The reason we pin the date of the 700s BC for the actual sign of Jonah that Christ was talking about is because specifically in Kings, I believe it's 2 Kings chapter 14. I don't have it off the top of my head, but it specifically says that Jonah, son of Amittai, was a prophet during the reign of Jeroboam II. And we know exactly when that date is because we're able to do that. You know, you can look at Galil, Kitchen, you can look at the different, you know, historians and chronologists, and we can see, okay, we know when that is. That's the first clue. The second clue is in the different, what do they call it?
And before you get there, I really want to ask, we generally think of the sign of Jonah as him being swallowed by a fish, 3 days, coming back. So the way I've understood the sign of Jonah in relation to Jesus is he's saying, you guys don't get anything except for my burial and resurrection. It sounds like you're suggesting that it's some kind of a heavenly sign in the sky that they're actually, that they understood. Is that what you're saying?
And I would say it could be both and. Quite often it is. It could have been something
But why would the Pharisees have really thought about something in the sky? I mean,
because they would have known Scripture probably better than we do that the sun, moon, and stars were created for signs and for appointed times. Whereas, you know, again, in our upbringing, a sign might have been, you know, it's viewed as maybe a miracle. And he was doing miracles left and right, as if that wasn't good enough evidence for them. Just the miracles he did. You know, I've been going through on the Hanukkah issue lately, and it's like, tell us if you're Messiah. It's like I told you. Not only had he told him, he had demonstrated he healing the sick. He was opening the eyes of the blind. You see in his ministry all of these signs, these miracles. But I think it is both and. And we just, again, in Christianity, we're not taught to think like that. We're not taught to link signs back to, well, what would have been a sign to the ancient Israelites? And so I can see where it is a both and it certainly was a sign when he resurrected, although they still rejected him. So,
Doug, we've seen it with Babylon. I went back in the April 8th time frame, the eclipse time frame, and I looked at it, and Babylon had those signs. They were, I think, 5 or 7 year signs, but there were the eclipses, and judgment seemed to pour out during those time frames. Then also with Nineveh, it was the same situation. You saw those eclipses. So I agree with Scott. It seems like both, they would have just associated both.
Abraham, I'll put this up for you. I mean, I have read, probably hundreds of times in my lifetime through the Babylon passages and studying them. And I've never really thought until you just brought it up, an earthquake that would do this, either in the Atlantic, the Gulf of Mexico. I can see how an earthquake even in the Great Lakes could take out cities that are on the seaboard, or how I don't know how far inland. I don't know how large a tsunami might could get in the Great Lakes, but those are very, very large bodies of water. And I've never been in the Great Lakes, but I would assume the waves can get quite high just from a normal storm. So again, I can, without it being nuclear weapons set off or whatever that might create a tsunami. And I can see how even Yah could use the nations, for judgment on America or other nations where they might decide, well, we're going to set off a nuclear weapon along this fault line to try to create a bigger tsunami from an earthquake. So there's all kinds of possibilities and theories running through my head. What are your thoughts on this particular passage?
Yeah, so when I was doing I dedicated 12 to 13 hours to the April 8th eclipse. Before I even knew it was a thing, guys, I didn't even know people were going to be that interested in it. I started covering it in like December, January, December 2023, January, or earlier this year. And one of the videos that I did, there's a place called La Palma. I believe it's owned by the Spanish or the Portuguese. I just can't remember off the top of my head right now. La Palma has a specific volcano on it that if it erupts,
La Cumbre Vieja. Yeah.
Cumbre Vieja, that's right. If that thing erupts, it's supposed to cause a tsunami to hit the East Coast as well.
Oh, we're dead if that thing goes off. That thing is gonna go 500 miles an hour. It's gonna be like 100 feet tall, and and it's crazy. I know. I did research on that years ago. It's nuts. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, Doug, exactly. And when you look at the Bible codes for that, like I'm not a huge Bible code guy, but we came across some information when we were putting together that live stream back then. If you look at the Bible codes, it actually says and indicates that Putin might be involved with the detonation of a warhead at that location just to inundate the East Coast.
Now that's interesting. Wow, that's a twist right there. Yeah, because that whole thing, like, I think it was like somebody, I don't know, scientist something or other, Jonathan Day or something like that. He talks about how basically there's a bunch of water that's in the fissures of the rock on that island. And so if you have a nuclear blast could certainly do that, but also if you have an eruption, then it would make all that water boil, which would then basically pop the top off the island. It would then come rushing down. It would drop 700 feet into the water, which would then create a tsunami wave traveling 500 miles per hour over to the east coast of the Americas. And the wave would be just crazy tall. And it's not only the initial wave, but then it's of course all the the flooding that would come in after that. The flood surge, it would do a tremendous amount of damage. And of course, that's where a lot of people live, right? That's where a lot of the population tends to live on.
Wasn't that in the news a few years ago about a possible eruption? Don't I remember that? Because I heard, or at least I heard in prophecy circles.
They've been talking about it. They're saying that it's
People
way
talking about
overdue. It's like, 150,000 years overdue or whatever.
Well, and let's be honest, when we start looking at the United States of America and the left coast and the east coast, that is where evil just loves to live. I'm not saying we don't have a lot of evil people here in Alabama, but comparatively speaking to the East Coast and the West Coast, they're the ones that are wanting to support little kids changing from pretending that they can change from a boy to a girl. All of this, no doubt, 100% abominations, evil in the eyes of Yah, and I can see how Yah will judge America, but he could even do it selectively based on region and location, as opposed to simply judging the entire landmass, which is a very, very large landmass. Not trying to say that any state is righteous, but there are certainly pockets in America that follow Christian, biblical, Judeo-Christian morals and beliefs a lot more than other pockets. So I could even see how certain cities could get wiped out, one way or the other. The cities are cesspools.
Okay, so Abraham, do you think that based on the 2017, 2023, 2024, these odd little solar eclipses, that there's a pattern there and that it's setting up for something that's prophetic?
That's a great question, Joel. So the reason I brought up the La Palma, the eruption there, is because the 2024 solar eclipse, the path actually ended over there. So they actually saw it. It wasn't obviously a full eclipse like what we would see here in the United States, but they actually got touched. The westernmost part of Europe got touched by the April 8th, 2024 eclipse. And so it appears that the omen reached La Palma, basically. But yeah, going to your question, Joel, I guess we kind of have to still backtrack a little bit to ancient Assyria to understand the pattern, to understand the cyclical nature of these things. Again, so I was kind of pinpointing the ancient sign of Jonah. And again, Doug, I know you're kind of like, wait, is this for real? Like, is this legit? A sign in heaven?
It is, Doug.
What I do whenever I have a question like that, it's a hypothesis. Okay, I think this may or may not be true. Let me go see what I find. I didn't go into it with a bias, of course. I just hey, let me see what it is, because everybody's saying the sign of Jonah has something to do with the solar eclipse. Let's just see what it is. And what I found is that just like America's 7-year triple eclipse, Assyria had a 7-year triple eclipse. And this is what most people don't talk about. I don't know why. After everybody, let's face it, guys, everybody's making money off the YouTube algorithm, getting the pump up the views and all that kind of stuff. And that's their business. But they kind of dropped the ball. That's what I'm saying. Like all the big YouTubers, everybody who would cover it, they kind of dropped the ball, and no one figured it out that it's actually a cycle of 7 years, roughly, with 3 solar eclipses. So in 770 BC, we start this whole thing off, the judgment of Nineveh, with it's a total solar eclipse. Okay, Americas began with a total solar eclipse in 2017. That went through the southernmost extremity of the Assyrian Empire. That's key. It went through the southernmost extremity. It would have been highly visible in Iran, Elam, modern day, of course, but highly visible to the Assyrian Empire and their territories, because this was the Neo-Assyrian period. This is when they were dominant. They were the powerhouse in those days. They were an endless war. Kind of sounds familiar, right? They're always at war with their neighbors. There was a lot of resentment, but no one could do anything about it because Assyria was a dominant superpower. It was the Neo-Assyrian period. So you have 770 BC. Then just a few years later, 765 BC. This one is critical. What most people would fail to realize is that to the ancient Assyrians, according to books like I'm trying to think, Jean Bottero, different Assyriologists, they'll tell you if you dig for it, for the Assyrians to see a solar eclipse, even if it's partial, it was a sign of serious danger. And what they would actually do is they would have a ritual called the substitute king, which is called the Sarpuhi. and they would actually substitute a fake king during the period of the solar eclipse just to make sure that the real king didn't die. So to say that this was like, no big deal, inconsequential, no, it was a really big deal to ancient Assyria. They understood that it means something. These solar eclipses mean something. So in 765, you have a solar eclipse that traveled through the Mediterranean. And it went through Athens, Greece. It went through Istanbul, what would become Istanbul, Turkey. And Constantinople, I believe it went through at that time. But even that eclipse, because it was total, even though it was in the Mediterranean, it would have been like 70 or 80% visible to Nineveh, the capital of ancient Assyria. So again, we have 770, we have 765, and then we have the grand finale to complete the 7-year cycle of judgment to Nineveh. 763 is when you have a eclipse go pretty much right through ancient Nineveh. And that's the one that people talked about a lot on the internet, on the interwebs, right? But it wasn't that wasn't technically the sign of Jonah. It was a cycle. God doesn't just judge right away, right? He gives people warnings. He tells them to repent. So he gives people time. And so relaying that to today, so the eclipses over America from 2017 to 2024, it began with a total, ended with a total. Assyria began with a total eclipse 770, ended with a total eclipse in 763. Guys, you cannot make this stuff up. I've mapped it out. I've charted it out.
When do you believe Jonah was sent to Assyria? What year?
So because of the language used in the passage of immediately, okay, so we know that the king, which is Ashur-dan III, I pinned it to the king. You can, with proper study of the time frame, you see his behavior. Consecrate a fast. Don't taste anything. Don't even, not even the beasts are going to eat today, guys. No water, nothing. Consecrated a fast. And what did Jonah do? What literally would be normally 5 days later, he went to build a sukkah, right? So this is key to the time frame. He went to build a sukkah. That's what it tells us in Jonah chapter 3 or 4. I can't remember. I think it's 4. And then he went under the shade of a plant, and he waited to see what would happen in Nineveh. But he built a sukkah. I didn't use the word ohel in the Masoretic Hebrew text. If he would have said ohel, I would have been like, oh, when Jonah was vomited onto dry land, he brought a tent with him somehow. But it used the word sukkah. So he built a sukkah 5 days after the Day of Atonement. So I pin this to what we would call the Hebrew winter time frame, which we would call North American fall time frame, right?
So what year?
So the year for that would be 763 BC. So here's the key, right? Nineveh saw the total solar eclipse 763 BC, but God waited until, and I pinned this using TorahCalendar.com. You go and see the new moons for that year. You go and see the cycle. You're looking at a September Sukkot and Day of Atonement right there. And Jonah was telling them 40 days from now, you're going to be judged, which was November of 763 BC. And so it was the winter, Hebrew winter. So we're in the Hebrew winter right now. And this should scare.
Okay, this guy knows his stuff. Very impressed.
Or basically scare the hell out of anybody who's listening who understands the gravity of cycles, solar eclipses, the sign of Jonah. Well, yeah.
Making another connection to the 40, again, and sometimes there is a day for a year principle in scriptures, and a lot of times that is a very valid thing. What happened to the house of Judah, to Jerusalem, for what I believe would be 40 years after Yeshua returned and ascended to his place? Judah was judged. And so you can make a very good argument. I don't think I can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt that it was 40 years. I believe that makes way too much biblical sense with all the 40s, and 40 being a number used for judgment. 40 years in the wilderness, the 40 days and 40 nights, et cetera, et cetera. You've got all these. Have you ever thought about that, Abraham, as far as how Judah was actually judged after Yeshua was crucified, resurrected, and ascended?
Yeah, that's a new connection. I haven't thought about it. Yeah.
I mean, they were judged. I mean, not a stone was left unturned, and ever since then, Yah's been using Islam almost to put a thumb in Judah's eye now, even to this day. As far as look what I did back in 70 AD, and. Go ahead.
Doug, to prove it to you, I think it's Joel Kramer from Expedition Bible. found a stele from Nineveh that talks about which king was present and when this thing occurred. And so it's recorded. It's like their stele of wars, And so they document this odd pattern that Abraham's talking about. It's just very interesting that it's well documented and it matches up with the Bible. So it's a good video. I'll try to find it.
That's very cool.
So you think judgment could be coming, Abraham?
It's only a matter of when, not if, of course. It's just I have my finger on the pulse for this winter. I made a big deal about last winter for different reasons, but this time I'm just seeing those earthquakes and I'm seeing those natural disasters. I believe it ties directly into Amos chapter 8. Because, when you look at Amos chapter 8, it specifically says, I'm going to make the sun dark at noon. Well, okay, that didn't fit the criteria of 2017. That didn't fit the criteria of 2023, but it fit the criteria. As soon as the total solar eclipse passed over Texas, Eagle passed Texas, it was 12:02 or 12:03 p.m. local time. And I looked at Amos 8 and I'm like, you can't make this stuff up. And what does it say immediately after that verse? And I don't have it pulled up, but Amos chapter 8, immediately after that, it says, I will turn your feast days into mourning. What do we have coming up? We have Christmas, Easter.
Diane, I don't know if the meat was off or crocodiles just taste really bad. I couldn't chew it. Once I got the flavour in my mouth, I literally had to spit it out. I've never done that before. So I won't be eating crocodile again.
Christmas and Hanukkah, sorry.
I have eaten a bit of kangaroo.
Happened
and New Year's.
They happen to coincide this year, and that would be the two harlot sisters, Judah and her holy days, and the house of Israel, aka Christianity's, and her festivals. These are not his festivals. These are the two still harlot sisters rolling around in the bed. We just happen to have different festivals. And I say we, I don't, I no longer roll around in the bed on those festivals. Either one of them.
Yeah, and I had mentioned this earlier. Hosea chapter 5, verse 7. I pulled it up just to make sure I got it right. When ancient Ephraim, northern house Israel, was judged, God said, a new moon shall devour them in their heritage. So if ancient Ephraim, Israel, was judged on a new moon, guess what is also happening right on New Year's? A new moon, guys. So feast days into mourning. Hosea chapter 5. Everything is connecting to me.
Wow, this New Year's.
I'm not saying it's going to happen in January 1st, okay? But we should be expecting it. We should be preparing for it. Because, sorry?
I was just going to say, shameless plug, everybody. Myself and Steve Mutria recorded something. I've never recorded it before, but I promised him I would wait till he put it out on his channel. But I will have it up on mine in the next day or two, where we're actually discussing this topic. And if anybody's ever watched Steve and listened to Steve teaching, he is a date watcher, not a date setter. This would be this coming Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, the beginning of when our brother Judah starts to do their festival, their religious holy holiday festival happens to coincide. And so Steve's looking at that. And to your point, Abraham, the New Year's, in other words, the pagan, Gregorian, Roman New Year. And so, again, not saying anything's going to happen, but just everybody watch that. And if something does happen, it's not a prophecy. I have not received a dream or a vision or anything. I'm just starting to really watch certain dates historically, and it's based on biblical dates like Haggai, and that would be the 24th day of the 9th month in Haggai 2, and things of that nature. So again, I don't think we're going to see certain events fulfilled until an actual Moedim. In other words, I like to call them, Abraham, the Feast of Jesus now to my Christian friends. And they go, what are you talking about, the Feast of Jesus? I'm like, oh, didn't he create these Moedim, these appointed time, these feasts on day 4? Is he the creator God or not? And so it kind of, when you call them the Feast of Jesus, you kind of get people, you get people starting to ask that question, like, what in the heck are you talking about? Those are the Jewish feasts, and so, but I do believe those dates that prophets received the word of Yah, those specific dates, dates that have happened in history, through Judah's history, through the house of Israel's history, maybe
That's on PlayStation. I don't like Xbox.
historically, or when the prophet was given a certain prophecy. Pay attention to that as I believe events unfold. Pay attention to when things happened in the past, because as Abraham pointed out earlier, prophecy is cyclical. And that's why none of the Christian systems of preterism, historicism, or futurism make sense, because they're trying to plug it into one or the other. And the answer is to all three is yes. It is preterism, it is historicism, which is historical pattern, and there will be a future final fulfillment.
I never.
And so, and then you can read your scriptures and not bang your head against the wall and go, but this was fulfilled, or but this certainly wasn't. And then you're trying to put Isaiah 51, these passages, you go, well, that, no doubt Babylon got judged, but there's a lot of that prophecy that you go, this has not been fulfilled yet. And so I believe as more and more people start to have this Hebraic understanding of prophecy, that even the historical accounts that, I don't like to call them stories, that are recorded in the Torah, specific dates that occur in the Torah, it won't necessarily be fulfilled exactly that way again, but those historical accounts are also the purest forms of prophecy. And I think that's what more and more people are starting to have ears to hear and eyes to see as they're learning prophecy. We're unlearning these three systems, and I would say we're taking what is true about each system, but then when you merge them together and you have this Genesis to Revelation biblical view of Scripture, as opposed to trying to separate out the testaments, then prophecy starts to make sense.
So Abraham, are you familiar with Amos 1 at all? Basically related to Syria, and here's why. Many of the locations like Damascus are listed in Amos 1. And so I was listening to a video today, and they were citing, Damascus is cited, and some of the other cities are cited, and it seems like, that region will fall. And it seems like it's related to today, but I don't remember my history well enough to figure out how and when those places fell, and what time frame and things like that, or if they never did. I mean, like Damascus has never fallen, and we're always watching for that. That's Isaiah 17:1. But basically, do you think that there's something prophetic about Syria falling as fast as it did, exactly when it did, and how do you feel about it?
This is a great question. I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on this too. Let's go to Isaiah 17. I'm going to take a look at it real quick, because I recently came across some kind of interesting facts about this, as people have been talking about it, obviously. So it says, behold, Damascus will cease from being a city, it will be a ruinous heap. When I've studied this in the past, and what I'm noticing is people neglect what comes after that, right? It says, in that day, it'll come to pass, and this is verse 4, that the glory of Jacob will wane, and the fatness of his flesh grow lean. It talks about, basically talks about end times Israel being judged.
Abraham, you skipped verse 3. The fortress,
the fortress
also shall cease from Ephraim, and who is currently has the greatest armed forces in the entire world, in military bases all over the world. It's the United States of America. I mean, and so again, I look at this as sort of, it's not going to be good for Ephraim, and I do believe that America fits the picture of Ephraim. It is a multitude of nations. It is a melting pot of people from all over the world that have come here. And in spite of how Babylonian, pure pagan, and evil this nation has gotten, there is still a large part of the nation that would certainly fit the bill for the house of Israel. They believe it. They have the testimony of Yeshua. They've been taught love your neighbor, love others. The gospel has went out from America. There's been many great things about this country, but we fit, I believe, what would be called end times Ephraim, simply because we are a multitude of nations. And you could even make a good argument that now with Britain and other European Western countries opening up borders, that they would fit that bill more. Whereas you go to certain countries, Asia, Africa, things of that nature, they are not such a melting pot. They are still more, homogenous comparatively speaking to Europe and America. So, in Canada and Australia. And so, again, don't like to do a DNA thing, but I don't think there's any doubt that the Western nations have had that firstborn blessing. They have been more fruitful than.
That's undeniable. The West is much better off than the East, and that's because of the Judeo-Christian values.
Than those in Africa, South America, and Asia until very recently. So you just see all these patterns, and when you start to look at prophecy, and you see House of Israel, or you see Ephraim, pay attention, everybody. Don't just think, because there's no such country called Ephraim by now. Everybody's like, well, it has to be. The Bible is not about America. The Bible is not about China or South America. It's only about this land ancient lands surrounding. Well, where in the heck is it?
When they had lockdowns in China, they were trapped in their apartments for like 6 weeks, and that they ended up having to eat the cats and the dogs.
There's no country called Ephraim.
The West Bank is kind of that, isn't it?
What now?
The West Bank.
No, that would be the location.
No.
But there is no country right now called Ephraim. There would be a geographical location, but Ephraim was swallowed up by the nations, and we're still in exile. We live in Babylon to the point of Abraham's channel. We're to overcome Babylon and eventually get out of here one way or the other. So.
We're changing insurance for the better. Switch to Bank Australia Insurance.
This is BritBox. Yes, even more streaming telly.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's you pretty much see Ephraim in a very similar way than I do, Scott. The only difference is I see Ephraim.
Hey, Sean, good to see you.
Jacob, obviously, when he had Reuben was the firstborn. Reuben, he was the firstborn.
Yeah, Diane, when the cats get a lizard, I go out there and rescue the lizard. I'm very kind with animals. I love animals.
Born blessing recipient, but because he slept with Jacob's concubine, he forfeited it. Then it was passed on to the firstborn of Rachel. Of course, this is Joseph, but then he was split into Ephraim and Manasseh. Ephraim came first, and then Manasseh. So the way I see it is you have France, Reuben, the beginning of his strength, Genesis chapter 49, that's what it says. So I see France came first, Napoleon Bonaparte was the peak of French power, really. Tons of different constitutions after that, a lot of instability. And so that's what I see. Then you see Ephraim, you have the UK taking up that mantle, being the multitude of nations, thousands of a multitude of nations, whereas Manasseh, the very last firstborn recipient, he's just thousands, whereas Ephraim was 10,000s. So I see Manasseh as America, but that adds to the whole dynamic, because whether you want to call him Ephraim, Joseph, or Manasseh, it's really synonymous in prophecy in a lot of places, and this is a good case in point. Isaiah 17, we're looking at Ephraim, the fortress, falling from the Anglo-American establishment. Well, that sounds like earthquakes. That sounds like natural disasters, because really it looks like nothing is going to put an end or put a stop to American imperialism, American colonialism worldwide. Whether you love American capitalism or hate it, that's really not what I'm bringing up. I'm just saying, they're dominating the Middle East. They're exploiting the natural resources. We're sending our guys overseas to fight wars under false pretense, and we're doing all kinds of things to exploit resources. That's just a fact. And so what's going to put an end to it? I believe we're going to see those earthquakes, and so that leads to somewhere in the mix, the fall of Damascus. And then somewhere in the mix, you see the scattered Israelites worldwide, but especially the big time powerhouse nations of the G7 of the West. You see them falling.
Do you see ISIS growing in power and scope?
Well, what is ISIS, right? It's an American proxy.
It is. I mean, it seemed to grow during somebody's time. So yeah, go there.
Same with, I forget the name of the acronym because it's so new, but the HTS or whatever it is that's running Syria.
Right.
That's an American proxy as well, funded and armed by the Americans. And they're radical. Again, these radical groups, we're responsible. We have a lot of blood in our hands as a nation, but we do it to overthrow, to destabilize, and to take resources. In this case, there's a lot of rumors and speculation about a natural gas pipeline going all the way from, obviously, the Middle East through Turkey to the EU, so to reduce Russian dependence on natural gas flows. So that makes a lot of sense. You want Damascus to fall. You want to, arm and fund radical groups to go ahead and do this kind of a thing. Again, that's just my opinion, but that's obviously when you connect the dots, you see these kinds of things taking place. So it's all American imperialism on full display, right?
Yeah, I personally don't. I mean, I don't know what you stand on this, but I don't think that Damascus has actually fallen yet. I mean, it says it's going to be a ruinous heap. I just don't. I tend to take it a bit more literally. I don't think that it really qualifies as ruinous heap. We had the overthrow of a dictatorship that had been in power for decades, and it may get worse, in fact, with whoever comes in next. We don't know. Hopefully, I hope they have a lot of golden years ahead of them. But when you have a power vacuum, it can certainly lead to even worse guys being in than the guy they had before, which is pretty crazy. But I don't know. I tend to take those just a bit more literally. I think a nuclear, what I suggest in Regenesis Code is, well, my co-author Mornay suggested, it was his great idea. But basically, a dirty bomb could take out Damascus, so it could be very limited in scope. Certainly, the blame could be put on the modern state of Israel. Not to disagree with anything we were saying about, Ephraim's role in this whole thing. But,
His name's Abraham. We've never seen him before. It's the first. He's pretty interesting, though.
do think that Judah is going to incur some hatred as we get into the last days, even more than we've ever seen. And I don't know, we're in very interesting times. I mean, Scott, I think you make a great point about, Ephraim. There's no country called Ephraim. And even though I'm, I want to be very careful about saying that America's Ephraim, I would say that we're part of Ephraim, and we're probably the strongest part of Ephraim if we had to kind of take a stab at it. It's people are waking up too. This is what we get kind of excited about, is that people are waking up, like the four of us here, and we're waking up to the fact that we are part of Ephraim, the house of Israel. We haven't replaced the Jews. We're joining them,
What is he saying, Lafroy? What's Lafroy? Is that what he said?
I want to be very careful about saying that America's Ephraim. I would say that we're part of Ephraim, and we're probably the strongest.
A part of Ephraim. I don't know the country he's talking about.
Part of Ephraim, if we had to kind of take a stab at it. It's people are waking up too. This is what we get kind of excited about, is that people are waking up, like the four of us here, and we're waking up to the fact that we are part of Ephraim, the house of Israel. We haven't replaced the Jews. We're joining them, albeit slowly, but we're joining them, and they're to some degree joining us. God is putting these two houses back together. We even see this in Isaiah chapter 11, where it says that he's going to gather his elect out of the four corners of the earth, right? Exactly what Jesus said. And he says, then Judah will not harass Ephraim, and Ephraim will not be jealous of Judah anymore. I mean, we clearly have that going on. That's been happening for hundreds of years, basically, where the church, aka Ephraim, unbeknownst to many of them, were very hateful toward the Jewish people. I mean, just look at the last couple of thousand years, and I think you guys will know that there's been a lot of hatred. Of course, Judah has been, to some degree, and for good reason, distrustful of Ephraim. And so all of that is going to be finally resolved when the Lord comes back. And so, the only...
He must be AKU subdoing, die. I'm subscribed too. So he must have already done that before.
Way we can have any sense of Ephraim of these passages is that Ephraim has to be out there somewhere, and turns out that we looked in the mirror like, oh, well, there we are, so that's kind of cool, and so it certainly opens up a lot of possibilities for prophecy, but it also kind of muddies the waters to some degree, because now we're like, well, okay, who are the players? So I don't know, we're in crazy.
Let's talk about the players. So in Ezekiel 38:39, we have players, and two of them don't seem to play well together. They're Sunni and Shiite. So the Sunni side would be more Turkey and Syria and those areas right now that we're dealing with. And then the other side is the Shiite side, which is Iran, Persia. They're part of it too. And right now they don't talk to each other. They hate each other, but at some point in time they seem to come together and then fight against Israel. Abraham, how do you see that coming together?
That's really good, brother. To add to your point, Doug, I agree. I'm looking for physical destruction of Damascus, and it makes even more sense now, because, of course, if it's under Anglo-American Israeli occupation, even more reason for a specific prophecy that has to do with Persia. To add to your point, Joel, I'm looking for a very specific prophecy to unfold. It's Isaiah chapter 22. I haven't really looked at a whole lot of commentaries on it because I don't know. It was really obvious to me what it was talking about when I was studying it. But I'm looking for Persia to play a pretty big role. But before we talk about that, I guess BRICS. One thing that I talk about a lot on my channel is the BRICS nations. It was the BRICS, just the Brazil, India, China, South Africa. It was just them for a while. And something happened in 2023. And to this day, it was the biggest YouTube video I ever did. I think it's because it was accurate in a strange way. Obviously, I never say "Thus says the Lord." I'm not presumptuous, but I said, "Hey guys, BRICS is going to join and become the BRICS 10 of Revelation chapter 17 to take down the West, beginning August 2023." And that ended up being correct, because the last annual BRICS summit, not the one this year, but the one prior, you had the formation of, okay, now Saudi Arabia is getting in there. Now you have all these players getting in there. Obviously, Persia. You have all, basically, the exact nations that are being spoken of in Ezekiel 38:39 are in the BRICS.
You've got East versus West. I mean, you've got...
You do.
If we look at it from a Christian historical standpoint too, everybody, Mama Rome is not happy right now with the Russian Orthodox Church. I mean, I believe we've seen sort of a renewal of that rivalry coming to fruition, and again, at the upper echelons of these occultists, I think they know they're all on the same team. Others just maybe play their role, but I see this just all playing out as however it ends up playing out, this political intrigue. And
I just said that I reckon the Pope behind the Shiite and Sunni getting together, because the Pope went to Iran about 6 or 7 months ago to go to a ziggurat, so he probably done the deal then.
A lot of the puppets not even realizing who's really pulling their strings. We know it's the powers and the principalities and the heavenlies that are the real puppet masters, and the humans on this earth are just the puppets. But this East-West thing, this great schism, even between the Orthodox Christianity and Roman Christianity, I think you see that right now playing out between America, who would be, I believe, is the military arm of Rome. And you've still got Russia, and they're forming these alliances with the Shias. And so you have this East versus West. So you have like Sunni, you have some Sunnis in with the West, but I can see most of Islam aligning with this Eastern BRICS alignment. Not just the Joel Richardson view, or some that have a view that it's just about Islam, but it also will include these other nations and countries such as Russia, China, etc. So that's possible. In other words, I'm like you, Aaron. I'm not a "Thus saith the Lord." I'm just watching things unfold, and it is interesting that BRICS went to 10. Joel has an interesting theory on technocracy, and how these 10 kings, maybe somebody like a Bill Gates, an Elon Musk, which I don't think he'd call his all of his companies, X, that has occultic symbols, the number 10, the Roman number 10. Again, guys, he's not picking these things for no reason. We're not seeing Neuralink coming about. We're not seeing him and Trump and Abraham. Doug, if you got time, Abraham's not as bold as our guest Maria on the Donald and the Orange Man, but he has some pretty strong opinions on DJT. So, and I can't say that he's wrong. What's your thoughts about the president-elect, Abraham?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, we might have some Trump sniffers on here that need to hear what your understanding is.
Okay, before I say anything, I voted for him twice, read his books. In fact, do I still have them here on my desk? I have books of his right here. Anyways, I was really big into his work, absolutely followed him big time. So to say that I'm just a Trump hater or this and that, it's just total nonsense. So I voted for him twice, 2016, 2020. Fool me once, fool me twice. You're not going to fool me 3 times. But I did a 3-part series on Trump, actually, for the YouTube channel. I investigated what his true religious ideology is, because everybody and their mother wants to say, oh, he's such a Christian man. Oh, he's so blessed, brother. Didn't you see Brandon Biggs' ear prophecy when Trump, got shot in the ear? And, oh, Brandon Biggs predicted it. And Brandon Biggs also said that Trump is just this radically born-again Christian man. And so I hit that really hard, guys, because there are a lot of people coming up and having dreams and saying things, and they're not 100% true, but they are saying, thus says the Lord. And they're saying, this is straight from God, man. This is God's word to you guys. And they're saying he's a Christian. He's going to, he's going to restore the country. We're going to have this golden age. It's going to be so amazing. And meanwhile, you have basically his, first dude of the White House, first man, or however you want to refer to him, Elon Musk, making the biggest AI data center in Memphis, Tennessee. And they literally just put it live. It's called Colossus, which, if you understand the Greek god, the Greek sun god, now you have Colossus in Tennessee, the biggest private data center for AI. Like you said at the beginning of this whole conversation, Doug, it's like, are we building Skynet here? Like, at what point are the robots and the machines and the AI and the algorithms going to launch the nukes from the silos or something crazy? Something's going to get out of hand. I'm just saying.
Well, and what I just put up is over at where they rededicated the Cathedral of Notre Dame. And there's him and Macron giving each other the secret, spooky Freemason handshake.
Yeah.
And he sits there, with every time he sits there with his upside down, female symbol. Every time, again, the guy went to a Jesuit school, guys. I believe he has played his role probably better than anybody. And Abraham, what are your thoughts on, under the guise of conservatism, under the guise of getting out all these immigrants and everything, this digital, we need biometric ID so we can keep out these aliens. These illegals. We need biometric ID. We need a way to track people so we can get these illegals. Never let a crisis go to waste. And so what people can't see, like you were pointing out with his best buddy Elon now, and how Elon all of a sudden went from this to just like over a course of 5-6 months being the superstar for free speech and all my conservative friends love Elon now, and they love Trump, and it's like you can't say anything to these people. It's an allegiance and it's a worship by almost half the country.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%, because I post videos on TikTok, just these little 4 or 5 minute videos, and I posted one today where I have a clip of Trump saying, "I never ask God for forgiveness. I don't think like that. I leave God out of that equation." He literally says that on camera. It's an old clip, but I have another one that reinforces the exact same thing. And in the comments, because I did a commentary like, guys, this is what it means to be a Christian. This is what it means to be born again. And I did a little commentary. And in the comments, people are apologizing for him. Hey, why are you judging Abraham? Why are you being so hard on Trump?
That's speak of the devil, John Barney, right here. That is bunk, Scott. John, I love you, son, sir, whatever you are. I'm assuming you're a male. But
Gold standard.
Gold dust. Pop. Lend me some deal.
I remember when he said it.
Arena Spectacular is finally coming to Australia in a grand scale concert. Experience them.
But you have been snowed and deceived so bad. And if you just take a look at the Trump Tower and all the occult symbolism on it, and take a look at his penthouse, he loves Apollo. I mean, just again, I'm not like Maria. I'm not saying that Trump is the little horn or anything like that. But if we're at the end of this age and he's going to be the president-elect of America, and that is who Yah has appointed, again, Yah has appointed him, not Satan, not a lower minion. Yah has appointed him. And maybe it's not for this golden age of America. Maybe it's not for this new dawn that the occult has been saying would happen in 2025. Maybe you should listen to Michael Flynn leading a bunch of deceived Christians in an occultic prayer said by Elizabeth Clare Prophet. I mean, when you see the people that he is surrounding himself with, when you understand the Christian nationalists and how they are in bed with Zionism, and when you understand the bigger picture of Zionism, and I'm not being anti-Judah, I'm just saying, people, take off the I love Israel glasses. God brought them there for a reason. He brought them there because all nations are going to ultimately gather against them. And they had to be in the land. And it's not like he just approves of Judah rejecting his offering of himself. And so when you start to look at this bigger picture, you're like going, oh my goodness, and you're like, it's like we've all been pulled and played our entire childhoods and adulthood lives. And once you see it, you're like going, oh man, and you see the programming. I love watching both sides now. I love watching Fox News for a little bit, and I love watching MSNBC, CNN, not to learn anything, but just to see how the maestros are playing that side of the board, and go over here and see it play. It's like we're going to play the same tune, but we're going to change up the notes so we can manipulate this side of the people, so that left versus right, so we actually almost hate each other.
That's the Hegelian dialectic right there.
Hey, Lynn, good to see you.
I was talking with my friend Ed yesterday, and we were just kind of both lamenting how, we often make God in our own image, and look, I'm the first to admit I've made God in my own image, because what do I really have? I have what I learned in Sunday school. Okay, yeah, Sunday school. What I learned from my pastors and teachers over the years. What I learned from my parents. What I learned from Charles Ryrie, the theology book. What I used to teach. I was steeped in all that stuff. And then I have my own understanding of the Bible. And it's crazy, because I probably know the Bible better than 98% of the people on planet Earth. And yet I can only understand God to the extent that of the things that I've studied, and it's so limited. It's so filtered, right? I have such a very limited understanding of God, and so what I would suggest for myself and for all of us is great amounts of humility. Okay, a huge amount, so that when we meet somebody that sees things a little bit differently than us, just say, you know what? There's a lot I don't know. I do not have the corner of the truth. And I think if we could take that position, we'd start to love each other again. But we get so haughty, we get so prideful, and I figured it out. I've got the right understanding, or my church does, but we don't. We have just a tiny, tiny little bit of the truth.
But Doug, you do understand that the front of the book is still valid. You have now, again, not saying you're smarter, but you no longer deny the heavens and the earth. When Yeshua said, not one jot, not one tittle, until heaven and earth pass away, you now believe that, and you don't teach it. It's not that you're smarter. It's not that you're a more loving person. And I put this up here because, we got another comment. LA says, I can't support replacement theology. When you have been indoctrinated into Christian Zionism or dispensationalism, when you hear something like what we're talking about, we are not talking about the church replacing Judah or Israel. We are saying that you need to go back, read your Bible, understand that it was Yah that united Israel into two different nations. The nation that you have been taught is Israel was just the nation of Judah. The other nation was conquered by Assyria, and then they were scattered to and swallowed up by the nations. And it's not that we're smarter or anything like this. I was blind as a bat to this until 2017. And it was just, you know, my interest in prophecy. I started studying and realized that these are not Jewish feasts. Next thing you know, I figured out that Sabbath was not Jewish. Things of that nature. And it's Yah opening eyes, and there, but you've got to do this. To see this, you've got to actually be willing to ask him, show me where I have been indoctrinated
Diane, I remember that.
Into a system, because the system of dispensationalism, and they will apply that prayer about those who bless Israel, and they'll apply that only to the current nation state of Israel and to Jewish people. No, but yes, at the same point in time, Judah was part of Israel, is part of Israel, and will always be part of Israel, but they have never been all Israel. They're still not all Israel. Everybody in covenant is Israel. And if you can't hear that.
No, I remember that as well, Diane. I'm chuckling about it.
And it's just because that's the way you've been taught. And we know very, very smart people. Doug used to be a diehard dispensationalist. I did too. Doug has brothers. I have brothers. And they just can't see this. I don't know why. Sometimes I think they don't want to see it. They want to be the church. They don't want to be Israel.
True.
And they think that it's anti-Judah to point out what Scripture says. Yeshua was said, your house is left to you desolate. He's talking to the house of Judah. It's like people don't want to read what Scripture says. I am very not in favor of Judaism because it is an anti-Messiah religion. I'm not in favor of the Roman version on the other side of the equation because it is also anti-Messiah. It teaches a different Messiah than what is in Scripture. That is not arrogance. That's just facts. You know, again, I don't support Judaism. I understand why Judah has been in unbelief. Romans 11 says it. We see all these, Yeshua says it. We see all the prophets saying this. But Yah has a plan for Judah, and at the very end of this age, when all these nations gather against Judah, they will look to him who they pierced. They will mourn. They will cry out, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Prophecy will be fulfilled, and Judah corporately will be saved. Then all Israel will be saved. It's not complicated unless you've been taught to only read it in that direction. What you got to say on that, Abraham?
Okay, Abraham, where are you? There you are.
Yeah,
okay, so you and Scott seem to agree that Trump has been selected by God to be the leader going forward. So why would God choose him, and what does God want to accomplish with this Trump man?
No, that's easy.
Yeah, Leviticus 26, right, guys?
Oh, no, seriously, you're going there? Or Deuteronomy 28? So everybody, Abraham, tell them what 26 is all about, or 28.
Well, I will appoint those over you who hate you. Okay, so that's the curses of disobedience to God, because obviously our nation doesn't follow God both in spirit and truth. They've maybe got
And Trump does do that snake parable.
one or the other. And the way I like to call spirit and truth, like the Jews claim they have Torah, so they claim they have the truth. The Christians claim they have the spirit, but neither one walks fully in spirit and truth. Well, let me just see. When you go to Leviticus 26, is that not where we find it? I will appoint those who hate you to rule over you. It might not be there. I thought it was. I'm looking for it. But obviously, Trump's going to play a role where it's going to be a bait and switch, just like last time he was in office. Okay, trust me, guys, I went door knocking for Trump. I handed out flyers saying, hey, you guys going to vote? That was back in 2016, the election there. I went to rallies in 2015. I mean, I was heavily involved, guys. I think I went to like 3 Trump rallies back in 2015, 16, that whole time frame. And so I was heavily involved. It was a bait and switch. You guys saw what happened. You guys saw what he did. I could go into more details, but I got, I published stuff here on YouTube land and on the internet, and I know what gets censored and what doesn't. Had stuff deleted recently. But it was a bait and switch 100%. So what's the bait and switch this time? Obviously, it's going to have to do with cryptocurrency, because there's articles coming out today. Trump is just going to turn the USA into the biggest crypto capital of the world. So it's going to have to do with crypto. It's going to have to do with AI. Obviously, Elon Musk is there as the director of Doge, whatever it is. I forget the whole agency that they're running, government efficiency. Obviously, it's important enough to have Elon in the mix, and he's big into crypto and AI. And then you see who he's surrounding himself with as well, like guys like JD Vance, who are directly connected to Palantir, which is a government surveillance data mining company that has done a bunch of stuff for the DoD, bunch of, military industrial complex. The guy running that whole ship with Palantir, I forget his name offhand, I should know that, but he's heavily connected to JD Vance. And you just look at who he's connected to. You see who the players are. You see who he's putting in his cabinet, pointing to his cabinet. And it's pretty clear which direction we're going. It's exactly what you had mentioned earlier. I forget if it was Scott or Joel that mentioned it, but he has said, hey, we need a biometric scanning system to basically deal with illegal migration. So this crisis has been created. And now the damage control is there for the bait and switch. That's not really what this is about, because the United States today already has a good entry-exit system. You can enter in, you need to have documentation, you go to the checkpoints, whatever, you show your ID. It's to exit the country that Trump actually wants to put some of this biometric stuff in. It's going to cost millions upon millions of dollars, but we know Trump loves to print money. He did it last time, especially 2020. And it's going to put the nation further into debt. Things are going to get more expensive. You're going to have more inflation, but that's where the UBI comes in, Universal Basic Income. That's where you have Musk coming in to save the day. We're going to reward you for good behavior. You have senators. You have a lot of people talking about universal basic income now. We're all going to be rich together, guys. Didn't you know it's a socialist utopia? And it's just, you can see where this is going pretty quickly. It's just a matter of how far does it go until God puts an end to it, because I believe that's what we're going to see with the natural disasters.
So you're picking up on the fact that we're going to ramp up into this glorious state of money for everybody, 1920s, things like that. But then there will be a crash, and it will be environmental and also, or cosmological, maybe, plus financial, plus. So it'll be about 10 different systems crashing at the same time, you think?
Yeah, and the way I derive that particular synopsis, or should I say prognosis, of the disease of sin in America, Torahlessness, lawlessness, guys, it's a big problem. You go to Ezekiel chapter 7. Ezekiel chapter 7, I believe, is specifically for the West, end times the West, Western nations, because of what I call the pride flag prophecy that's in there. You have to read it from the English Standard Version. I believe it's the only translation that really gets it correctly. But his beautiful ornament, his beautiful rainbow, they turn into an image of pride, it says in Ezekiel chapter 7. And I've broken this verse down in my work, of course, and I just see that pride has budded, doom has gone out, and we're here now, because as much as it seems like nothing is putting an end to the freight train of this system, this technocracy, this mixing of the public-private partnerships, Palantir, like I mentioned, all these companies coming together to do surveillance, biometric scanning, cryptocurrency, digital IDs, all of these things coming together. As much as it seems like there's never going to be an end to it, prophecy seems to say otherwise. And what's very interesting is, yes, we know that there's these players at the tippy top of the pyramid, but it looks like something is going to go wrong. Someone's going to get double-crossed somewhere, because the West is going to be subverted and caught off guard when that wasn't supposed to happen. It doesn't look like it's part of their plan. Although, yes, people like Zuckerberg have bunkers, and big old, doomsday bunkers. Bill Gates has all kinds of stuff. These people seem to be preparing, but it seems like they also at the same time are so drunk with power, they seem like they're invincible. So it's really confusing right now, but I think it's going to become very clear very quickly, and it's going to catch a lot of people by surprise.
It's like they're getting ready for the sixth seal. The kings of the earth
There you
are
go.
really ready to go in their bunkers because they know the Lamb is coming. So
I totally agree, Scott. Amen.
Well, finally, we got an amen between you guys. That's awesome.
Joel stumbles on something every once in a while.
Yeah. Well, the sign for the sixth seal is coming up next year. March 13th, 14th, we're going to have the blood moon eclipse. And if we have the sun go from yellow to white to red to black, yeah, I tell you what, guys, it is a cosmological sign. And so, you know, Abraham and I both kind of study those earthquake patterns, and we've had a quiet period for the last 6-7 years of earthquakes. They're due, guys. They really do in certain regions.
I really have to push back on that one, because if you take a close look at the text, why does the moon? I know you do, but let's look again. Why does the moon turn to blood and the sun, you can't see it, by the way? Oh, the stars you don't see at all. Why does that happen? Because smoke comes out of the abyss. It's not a blood moon thing. We did all that in 2014 and 15, and that was just all bunk. I mean, I myself got all excited. Oh my gosh, this is, and then I'm like, this is nothing. You know what? I finally got here, and I'm like, I was so wrong on that one. I was so totally wrong. I was talking about the blood moons way back in 2000, I don't know, 9, 10, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was like, oh my gosh, 2014 and 15, you know. And I was still pre-trip back then. And I thought, oh, this is it, man. This is a sign, you know. And it was Mark Biltz that started all that stuff. You know,
it is.
But he was, I think he's so wrong. Because if we go back and we take a look, what happens in Revelation chapter 9? There's the abyss opens up, and guess what comes out of it? A whole lot of smoke. And guess what happens when smoke covers the sky? The moon turns to blood red. That's the color. Guess what happens to the sun? It turns dark, like it's covered in sackcloth, and the stars can't see them. I mean, just look what happened with some of those volcanic eruptions in Iceland. There's one, I can't remember how you pronounce that thing, back in 2011. And I remember seeing the pictures. I'm like, oh my gosh, there it is. You could see that the sun looked like it was covered with sackcloth. The moon looked blood red, and the stars, you couldn't see them. I myself saw the effects of a forest fire when I lived in Southern California. And I saw the moon, and it looked blood red. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's kind of wild. Well, then finally, years later, I put 2 and 2 together, and I'm like, oh, all right. So the whole thing about a lunar eclipse, I just think it's completely off base. It's not at all what the text says. And,
we'll wait and see. Because it does say
but I think it's going to be another nothing burger. I mean, that's the problem.
Oh, it'll be an
We
exciting.
only have so many nothing burgers until we're like, I need something to eat, man. You know. And
None of us are date setting. None of
I
us
know,
are.
but you keep pushing that one.
Oh, yeah.
When is that, by the way? When is it?
March 13th, 14th sets the next cycle up of 9 of them through 2033.
When are most of us understanding that that Pesach, Passover, will be this year?
Okay, so March 13th, 14th is Purim, okay? And then we'll go into, you know, the next month, which would be Elul.
Okay, so and again, I can see how Purim was a historical event, and Lisa Owen has a great book out on this, on Purim and how certain events may unfold on a future Purim. So again, that would be sort of like Steve Lutry would be a date watcher from things that have happened in history. I would say, Doug, we should watch, but to your point, with a heavy dose of heavy block of salt in it, not predicting that it's going to begin the day of the Lord. I personally believe that the sixth seal is beginning the day of the Lord. That is Judgment Day.
Yeah. That's when Jesus is already ripping open the sky. That's what it says. He's ripping open the sky.
The sky's already ripping out.
Little plug for everybody who tuned in.
It's all right, Brother Joel. I love you, man. I know we disagree quite strongly on that one.
I study physics every morning, so there you go.
When Eddie comes on again in a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
we'll be discussing this Day of the Lord and his understanding on Revelation 6 and how it matches up with Isaiah, as Doug has pointed out, in Joel.
Isaiah 24. Yes.
Yeah, so that I think that'll be a very, and everybody just buckle up, get your Bibles out and be ready to hit pause, because Eddie's just going to rattle off things, and I'm going to ask you to prepare slides this time. So
We love Eddie. He's on the spectrum, but he just goes. So,
Go ahead, Abraham. Got anything else to add to it?
So basically, we're going to have a situation where things just accelerate, because Trump is going to say, I want to do this, I want to do that. He's going to try to force peace with Russia and Ukraine. He's going to try to form an Abraham Accord. So you've got Jared Kushner that's behind the scenes working on that already. He's best friends with MBS, Mohammed bin Salman from Saudi Arabia, who has not taken power yet, but he's working on it. So Abraham, where are things going to go? Is Trump going to push for peace, peace, peace? And will it be a true peace?
Hey, Abraham, what's your opinion, dude?
Yeah.
Well,
Don't put Abraham on the spot. Where is it going to go?
I want your prediction right now.
let me show you this real quick. And by the way, I want to say this, Doug, I appreciate you like crazy, man. I used to be pre-trib. Because we're Calvary Chapel guys, man. That's part of the core doctrine of Calvary Chapel. Costa Mesa.
That's right. Yeah, 1,000%, man.
Yeah,
even as a little boy, I could read First Thessalonians chapter 5 and 2 Thessalonians 2.
Yeah.
And my dad was hardcore pre-trib and wrote books on it, Abraham.
Oh wow.
I was like, Daddy, it says right here, his coming and our gathering happened after these two things. You know,
Yeah.
I was taught to read English, not Greek, obviously. Yeah. I'm like, this is not fitting.
Well, I did mention this, but my parents were missionaries for a season as well from Calvary Chapel, the organization. So yeah, we have a lot in common, Doug. I don't know if we've talked about these things in the past.
We haven't, no.
Yeah. We go back to the same roots, right? The Foursquare before Chuck Smith and all that. They're very charismatic and stuff like that. But anyways, I want to just piggyback off of Doug's point. I don't know if you guys can see that. You see palm trees. Those are date palms, like what you would find in Israel. And then you have a test of the atom bomb when it first came out. That was in the 1951. So when you look at Joel chapter 2, and I don't know if this is going to help you, Joel, in discerning these types of things, but it definitely goes to Doug's point, because he's talking about literal smoke coming out and the moon turning into blood. When you look at the word that he uses for pillars of smoke, Joel in chapter 2, verse 30, I believe it is,
31,
pillars of smoke, it's actually the word timara or timarot, pillars, timarot, which is tree, a date palm, spreading at the top. So actually, it could be interpreted to mean nuclear explosions of like mushroom clouds. I don't know if you guys have
That's
thought about that or
reasonable.
considered it before, but that's something that
I
I
haven't seen it.
Yeah, that's a reasonable assumption.
That's in the Hebrew, huh? Okay.
Yeah. He could have used, so there's like 4 or 5 different words that are used in the Tanakh for pillar, Jacob's pillar, Lot's wife turning into a pillar of salt. Those are totally different words.
The earth is on pillars, literally. I mean, it's literally on pillars. I'm joking.
Yeah. Anyway, steer me for a little bit, but the pillar.
We're not doing flat Earth tonight, guys.
Yeah, biblical cosmology. I don't know if you want to go down that rabbit hole.
No.
Feel dumber anytime I talk to a
pillar of fire, pillar of cloud. That's a different pillar. That's used to describe God's glory when they're dwelling in the wilderness in the tabernacle. The word there is very intentional, because in the Hebrew, this is something I learned. There's no word for mushroom in the entire Hebrew Bible. There's no word for it, mushroom. So he used the closest thing that he could find to describe a mushroom cloud, which is a palm tree, which I showed you the photo. If you
Okay, the Middle East didn't have mushrooms. That's interesting.
compare a palm tree, a date palm in Israel, or just the whole Mediterranean, Middle East, to a mushroom cloud of an atomic bomb or nuclear warhead like they are these days, big ones. Yeah, it looks exactly the same. That's how he would describe it.
Good to know. That's interesting. That's really interesting. Wow.
Okay, it is cool. I like that. Okay. I would argue that's World War III. That's not the 6th seal.
Like I said, I don't know where it fits.
Yeah.
I'm different, and I talked to you about this, Joe, privately, but
Yeah.
I'm very different. I go to the Tanakh. I touch Revelation when it confirms things in the Tanakh, but I don't really touch the Revelation that much in my work. I do, but not really a whole lot.
Yeah, you're in 230. He's in.
Revelation, all it's doing is taking a lot of snippets of, probably most of Revelation are snippets out of the Tanakh.
That's right.
I know.
I mean,
When it comes to, okay, this seal, this bowl, this trumpet, this, and here's the order, we got to figure it out, man. Like, I can't do that because I just don't, it doesn't make any sense to me, honestly, to be honest with you guys. And that's where I draw the line with my knowledge and understanding. I'm like, I'll get to it someday, but there's certain things that are very concrete to me, and I stick with those types of things. And I just could never figure out chronology with Revelation.
It's because it's arranged thematically and not chronologically. That's the distinction. So the sixth seal is already the second coming of Jesus, and then we have these reduplications of where we come to the end, and then we go back to the beginning or pretty close, and then we see it again, and then we see it from a whole different set of camera angles. I like to think of it like a car chase, and then in the movies the car explodes. How many times do you see that car explode? I don't know, like 4, 5, 6 times, right? Like they've got it from this angle, and then from the top, and then maybe from down below, and then when it goes off that embankment and all these different ways. And so you get to see that car explode like 5 different times, right? But it was the same explosion. And I think that's what's happening in Revelation. We have fewer events, but we have more camera angles so that we can really get a lot of detail on that. And to Scott's point, it really is just a kind of a retelling of what we see in the Old Testament. I mean, we see, Isaiah chapter 2, Isaiah 13, Isaiah 24, Isaiah 25, 6, 7, 8. Those are all like hugely, the book of Revelation.
It helps organize the jigsaw puzzle. Okay, we've got all these scattered pieces of the puzzle throughout the prophets, throughout the Torah, throughout the Psalms, throughout, we've got all these pieces, even Proverbs, talking about the harlot. Everybody thinks that that's just about going and cheating on your wife. No, that is about the Babylon. That's about the false religion. That's about what has crept into both houses. And for anybody that ever accuses me of being anti-Judah, you have not listened to this show long enough. I probably beat up on the Romanized version of Jesus and how it's been taught way more than I ever talk about Judah and Judaism. Tons more, because again, our audience is generally not going to be your Orthodox Jew. It's not. It's going to be those that are still in that part of the Babylonian religious system. I'm not saying you're not saved. I'm not saying you're not going to be in the kingdom. Don't hear me say that. But you're still wrapped up in part of that harlot religion, and Yah wants you out. He wants you to start getting your garments clean, because the bridegroom is coming. Israel was not told to not touch a woman just because Yah didn't want them to have sex with their wives, although that was part of it. That was the physical. He wants you to get all the way away from any elements of Babylon, whether they be 6-pointed stars, Christmas trees, 9-branch menorahs, or Easter bunnies, or eggs, or Ishtar Day. Again, unlearn the lies. That's and I'm an equal opportunity, if anything, more so against the Christian riverbank, as far as calling people to be. I want everybody to just believe Yeshua, Jesus, meant what he said. Not one jot, not one tittle.
The Babylonian stuff was 8 points, by the way, just so that we're clear.
Do I now?
Again,
I will get into the hexagram. The hexagram is not biblical. Get it out of the house. It's just not biblical. I'm not saying it's evil.
Another show for
yeah, again, well, we might as well, like the synagogue from Capernaum had swastikas, 5-pointed pentagrams, and a hexagram. And it has swastikas on it. Nobody would ever associate swastika these days as not being an evil symbol and occultic. They all go back. You can see them in ancient Babylon's, the steles and cultures. You see hexagrams. They're just not biblical. Not saying that Jews are sitting there worshiping a star, but they don't serve any purpose in God's house. He would have said, I want you to have a 6-pointed star, but instead we're getting very specific instructions.
It's interesting because in the temple you actually had depictions of the cherubim, which is really, when you go back and you look at the ancient Near East, you find that is the Anzu bird or the griffin. It's got a lot of different names, but it's essentially a depiction of what we would know as Satan, which is incredibly ironic because he was one of the cherubim, right? So sometimes we can paint ourselves in a theological corner when we say, well, this particular symbol is evil or it's good or whatever, when a lot of times the symbols initially had, they were neither good nor bad. But then as time went on, they started to have a particular meaning. And we know that the cherubim will once again be depicted in the millennial temple. So there's all kinds of interesting stuff on that. But I didn't want to necessarily get on that topic. So, Abraham, this was so fun, man. Thank you for joining us, dude. This was really amazing. Yeah, I think
come back.
Yeah, definitely come back.
Yeah, it's an interesting guess. Okay, guys, I'll finish off with this guy.
Roast for the family, covered in gravy, with Coles Australian pork boneless leg roast on special for.
Of course, joining 47, we got another prediction that just came true. We'll get into. It's all coming apart, my friends. This is Tony. Hope you're all doing well. We got so many things to get into. In this video, we have the Fed erasing half a year of something. We'll get into that. We have retail closures up 70%. We got another country going under. We got so many stories. We're going to get into also a little bit more about these drones, I guess. We'll get into that. Another prediction coming true. Remember Clement, he predicted the Kennedys, of course, joining 47. We got another prediction that just came true. We'll get into that. We got so many things. Let's just get going here. Let's start here, my friends. We have Walmart employees testing body cameras at some, of course, stores for security measures. And this adds into a lot of other things they've been doing over the last year, where they've been doing this crime thing with their cameras. I'm wondering if some of these body cameras also have that feature, right? So they have, of course, also their protection technology with their scans. I don't know if you've ever seen it. I've seen it numerous times where you move your arm the wrong way and it it records it you did something. You got your coupon out. And it thinks you did something nefarious and calls a representative to come over and check you out, right? They also have all this software, AI software, installed in their cameras, and now they're doing these type of cameras as well. Very, very interesting. We're seeing that at Walmart, and often I've noticed with particularly this new software that they've been using at Walmart, Kroger also went on board with that as well. And so now we have that going on. And we're going to get into a ton of stuff in this video. We're not going to just talk about this, but we're also going to get into some of these strange unidentified objects, apparently not just drones. We're going to get into that as well, and much more. Apparently there's this orb as well someone was talking to. I'm going to show that a little bit later into this video. Retail closures up 70% this year, thousands more to follow. This article is from yesterday. U.S. retail is facing real challenges. 7,100 store closures announced in 2024, 69% year over year, led by major chains like Family Dollar and CVS. And I've been on this like a hawk the last couple weeks. It's very obvious this whole thing, how things are starting to ramp up with regards to closures. Major national retailer with 850 stores mulls bankruptcy, prompting fears of mass closures. A major party and craft retailer with 850 stores across the nation is considering filing for bankruptcy. Party City has been faced with the possibility of mass closures just over a year after the company surfaced in Chapter 11. Celebration retailer known for selling balloons, party supplies, currently behind on rent at some locations. The store's latest struggle has been brought on by its continued financial straits, lagging sales, blaming effects. You get the idea. All right, so obviously this is Party City, yet another example of what we're talking about here. We're going to get into, like I said, a ton of stuff. We have here Dollar Tree, nearly closed 700 of its poorly performing Family Dollar stores. And discount behemoth Dollar Tree shuttered almost 700 stores. So far, about 2/3 of nearly 1,000 it plans to close.
Tally,
So
he has some interesting
seeing
stuff
Dollar
up.
Tree is
The only thing I don't agree with him on, he thinks we already had the 1,000 years, the Sabbath, the 1,000 years. That's the only thing I don't agree with him on.
well closing its family stores. And then we have this here. This story is pretty huge. He lied about, of course, everything. Philly Fed finds all jobs created in Q2 were fake. And this is something I was saying for months. I said, look, every time they'll put out these job numbers and then they retract it like a week, 2 weeks later, none of them were real. Like literally no jobs were made. Okay? None. And of course, I knew it. I called it. I said, look, it's probably because he wants to get in again. You know, he had to make it look good. The economy looked good when it wasn't. Let's see here. Here we go. You can see here 1.5 million jobs differential. Something snaps around March of 2022, and it goes completely sideways. And I was talking about how almost every single job that was created, while there was negative in the private sector, there was some positive in the GOV sector. Almost all of them went to non, of course, citizens, meaning you and I got literally negative jobs the entire last couple of years, pretty much. So they don't want you to know this stuff, do they? Of course they don't. You get the idea. Of course, like I said, we're going to get into a ton of stuff. We're going to be talking about yet another GOV that looks like it's about ready to go under. I'm going to show you some of the stuff going on there. We're going to get into, apparently there's now orbs. It's not just drones. Apparently there's other stuff. I'm going to get into a little bit of that. We're going to get into actually a ton of other stuff as well. Something we haven't seen since 1978 happen.
Yeah.
Okay. But first, I got to mention we have the giveaway. We have
About what? No.
literally hours left, friends. 1 day. Okay, so if you haven't got involved, I recommend you do so. $2,000 almost value for the first prize, gold and silver coins. Second prize, $400 laptop. Third prize, 3 months of food supply. Very easy to join. Just pause the video, click the link below, and you can easily enter. Just put your name and email, click a bunch of buttons. You will kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You'll be following me on my other social media, Twitter, X, all those. And you'll also be getting yourself very good odds of winning, because actually a lot of people do not do, all they have to do is simply click a lot of these buttons, and for some reason a lot of people just don't click them all. So just click them all and you can get yourself easily entered in numerous times into the giveaway. Link is in the description. Of course, also gold and silver link below as well if you want to get some of that. This book here, The Lost Ways, how your grandfather lived without electricity. I don't know. It's wise to have this book just in case. Get the printed version. You never know what's next. You've seen all the wonderful things happening around us. Drones, whatever the next thing will be, right? Link is in the description for that. Let's get back to the video. So, of course, apparently, UK...
No, and they're all pulling out because the market's going to blow up. We know that. That's why all these big companies are letting go of their staff, because they know there's not going to be a big company in the next 6 months, more than likely.
Government is an absolute meltdown. Counties given extraordinary deadline to cancel, their elections. County leaders have been given just over 3 weeks to decide if they want to cancel. So we're seeing this happening across the world. We're seeing meltdowns. I just saw a video pop up in my feed that we're going to see numerous GOVs collapsing due to their economy, due to people just losing faith in those running the show, which kind of what happened here as well. Even South Korea of all places. I met my wife there. They're very much not into politics or any of that stuff, and they'll get that. The only time they get out in the streets is when it's something really big, and that happened a couple weeks ago. So we had it happen in Germany over a month ago. We had it happen in France last week. We had it happen in South Korea 2 weeks ago, and now apparently it looks like England is going to be joining. You can see here, French GOV on brink of collapse over budget standoff. British local governments are at serious risk. French government. So you can see all these. Justin Trudeau on the brink of resigning. It's like it's dominoes everywhere. Ever since the 47-1, when he went to the Notre Dame Cathedral, everybody's like watching him. There's like literally, you can see him. He sits down and there's like 10 people looking right at him. And it's like, they know he's the king right now. He's the king. And they're all fawning over him. They're all nervous. Even Prince William was super nervous to even shake his hand. He's like clearing his throat. And like, it's just kind of strange to watch. You know what I mean? This is the guy you guys said was didn't deserve anything, shouldn't be in there, right? It's just kind of amazing. Now, of course, like I mentioned with these jobs, they literally fed us a bunch, of course, lies for 2 quarters. 2 quarters. All right? Telling us there's new jobs and 0 new jobs after they correct everything. You got the Dow Jones hasn't closed down 9 consecutive days since 1978 when Jimmy Carter was in the White House. That was a little while ago. 45 years ago. Not that long. Walmart employees. This is what I covered in the last video. Walmart employees testing body, cameras at some stores. So we're seeing more of this. And I'm thinking we're going to see a lot more of this. Because, of course, there is a lot more people robbing, stealing, things of this nature. We even had some TikTok viral trend recently where they're filling up their detergent with another bottle of detergent so they got more in it when they buy it. We're seeing all these things happen around us. And we have one popular Wall Street indicator, flashes stock market sell signal, investors' allocation to cash, has shrunk below a key threshold that has in the past preceded short-term pullbacks. And in reality, we've seen numerous charts showing that we are going to have a stock market collapse very soon here. And the fact we're seeing all these dominoes, we're talking all these stores closing left and right, bankruptcies, even bankruptcies going the wrong way with Party City, going from Chapter 11 to the other, whatever's next. We're also seeing GOVs, economic collapsing everywhere. The stock market is coming. It's next. We already have the charts that show this. And falling off a cliff, this chart proves we're in a major economic downturn right now. Job openings declined rapidly. This is thousands. What is this? In 12,000s and thousands. Okay, so 12,000 minus 8,000, that's 4,000, 4,000 thousands, whatever that is, 4,000 times 1,000. Quite a few. What is that? Anyways, 4 million? That's insane. Went down 4 million in the last few years. 4 million down. 4 million listings down. Job openings. Wow. So way down on job openings. 78, we lost a total of 78,000 manufacturing jobs during the recent 3-month period. And this is why we need 47N, because he's clearly knowing what to do to get these jobs back via tariffs, using the power of oil, tariffs, and potentially other things to back up the dollar, to strengthen our economy, to bring things back around the right direction. Hopefully it's not too late by the time it gets in there. I mean, goodness gracious. We needed him 4 years ago, not now. Okay. So like, this is midnight hour stuff here. All right. Germany. Volkswagen is sacking tens of thousands of workers in Germany. Never closed a plant in their history. Now they're closing 3 of them. 30% of the plants will close. Entire departments will be laid off. Salaries will be reduced by 20%. We have the Labour MP. This is Britain. Get back to Britain. The whole main story, or one of the main stories of this video. Labour MP seeks to block, of course, Elon gaming the system over controversial $100 million donation to, of course, reform. That's interesting. It's like, it was okay when it was, Soros doing it, but now it's not. Now it's not okay if someone else is going the other direction. Welcome back. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, Elon's got a little bit of taste of that in the last 6 months, and he's like, oh, this is pretty fun. I like this. This is working. I'm actually getting things done with my money. I'm going a good direction. Of course, at the first beginning of it would have been Twitter or X when he purchased that. But after that, he's seen sort of this pattern, and he started building on this. I'm guessing he's going to be a sort of a good version of this in the future. And hopefully he is. And he can turn around a lot of stuff with some of the stuff he's doing. And the UK is not exactly liking it. Let's just put it that way. Now, getting over to this prediction I mentioned from Kim, of course, Clement. He had here back in 2007. Remember, this is the guy that predicted the Kennedys would join 47, president-elect. Back in like 2009, he predicted that. How would you ever expect or even imagine that would come true, right? He also predicted he would become president, way before he even tried to run. How would you expect that? I mean, clearly he doesn't look like the type of person that would run in the first place back, 2007. Then he predicts that he would be Time Magazine, where Time Magazine will have no choice but to say what I want them to say. He shall become a trumpet. And of course, that is exactly what happened. Matter of fact, I saw the interview and it looked like they didn't even want to pick him for it, but it was like so obvious, you can't ignore it. It's like the guy you hate the most is clearly the man of the year. And it's like just, he's light years ahead of everybody else. You have to pick him even though you don't like him. And that's exactly what the message was. He says, Time Magazine will have no choice but to say what I want him to say. That's almost perfectly exactly what happened. Predicted that 17 years ago. 17 years ago. So, yet another one for Clement. He's gotten a lot of things correct over the years. And I've talked about numerous guys getting things correct. We had Brandon, Biggs. He got his prediction with the ear grazing. It's interesting. Now getting over to these whole, it seems like, I was saying it was mostly drones, and I was focused on the drones for quite a while there. But now we're starting to see some other weird stuff. It's not just drones. Honestly, this is getting really strange. Let me just play a little bit of this. We're going to play 2 clips. And one of them, just watch. We'll just play these, all right?
A lot of this that can be explained through military or just odd sightings or interesting atmospheric phenomena. But there seems to be this little small component that just kind of defies a natural explanation.
And you can see that on the screen when he has next to him. And it just looks like a strange orb of some sort. And actually, there's another video, which I'm going to show you in a minute, of a person communicating with this, well, supposedly. I'm not even sure if she really is or not. I feel like it's like you can see something if you want to see something. Maybe there's something there. I'm not sure. You guys can let me know in the comment section. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is.
I've seen this one. This is where the girl asked the orb, do you love Jesus? And the orb went nuts.
More there than I'm seeing. It could be just a mere coincidence. She says something and it seems like it's vibrating and reacting to it. I don't know, right? But let's just play a little bit more of this.
And lights in the sky, and then when they look at it in the thermal lens, you can see there's things coming off of these lights actually, like it's emitting something. and then it's actually hit with a missile. Two of them are, and they are affected by it.
Right. I actually covered this, I think 2 weeks ago, this one instance right here. It's so bizarre looking. It like I mentioned it reminded me of Terminator, is it 2 or 3, where you have the guy that's liquid. It goes right through it, and then it goes right back to its original form, and it has something dripping off it. I don't know what is going on here. You see how it's dripping off it? Like what is that? That is not a drone. Okay, it's not a drone, right? Obviously. So then we have some other clips as well. Like I said, I'm going to get into this other clip in a second. I wanted to mention, I was saying that a lot of people are really just getting to the point where they just want to get out of here. Beam me up, Scotty, get me out of here, God. I don't want to deal with this anymore. And I think that is the wrong message. We're in the midst of changing this world into a better thing. We need to be focused on that. And I saw this clip from Troy Black's channel, and this guy had a dream and woke up at 3:33 a.m. with sort of a message on these drones. Check this out.
It was at 3:33 in the morning.
Wow.
So it's 3:33. One of the things that I heard the Lord say, even as you were talking, just really felt led is to, it's the Chicken Little syndrome. The sky is falling, the sky is falling. What the enemy likes to do is pose all these threats into the atmosphere that we believe that everything is being destroyed. More people are looking to the end instead of looking in the present to.
Right. So I think that is an important message. I've been trying to say that myself, is that people are too focused on getting out of here. They don't want to live here anymore. And the fact is, we're winning. Let's focus on getting this thing done, unless you like the devil having things all over the place and dominion and whatever you want to call it. Unless you like things going to hell in a handbasket. I don't know if that's what you like. My point is that we need to be focused on turning everything around, getting things in the right direction, and continuing with this, not getting distracted so much, right? But I mean, obviously, I think it's interesting to talk about this and understand what's going on. I mean, obviously, they were looking for something. Everybody already knows that. But it is weird that some of these are not drones. Okay, some of these are not drones. Check this out.
And the more that she zooms in, we can see that this orb, this glowing light thing, is looking nothing like these other man-made drones that we've been seeing around New Jersey.
So she starts talking to this orb, and it doesn't seem like it's really doing anything at first. Like, it just seems like it's calm looking, like it's just smooth. And then all of a sudden it starts reacting to her words. And she says Jesus, and then it just starts like vibrating or something. I don't know what to think of this, because obviously she's very, very far away from this when she says this stuff. All right. So let me just play a little bit of this.
Jesus loves me. Oh, you know Jesus.
So you can see right there, it's kind of strange. She's talking to it.
Okay, guys, I'm out. Jukebox Saturday night tomorrow night, guys. So get your requests ready. See ya. God bless.